everyone. It is 6:30 p.m., so I will call this meeting to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I believe we have a volunteer from the audience this evening. If Monica would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, ready, set, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. That will take us to item 2, roll call. Could we do the roll, please?
Director Avila?
Here.
Director Denner?
Here.
Director Freeman? Or Vice Chair Freeman, sorry.
Yes.
Director O'Brien? Here. And Chair Craig?
Here. Thank you. That will take us to item 3, agenda review.
Thank you, Chair. Staff has no recommended changes.
All right, thank you very much. That will take us to item 4, public statements for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Obviously, we have the budget on this. Oh, excuse me. On our agenda this evening. So, just for everybody who's aware in the audience, I believe the board has a consensus we would consider the BMX track on the agenda this evening. So that would not count under this, but I do believe I have several speaker cards for, my apologies, one moment, from the tennis community. So I will start there, and then I will open it up to anybody else who has not yet filled out a speaker card. And I apologize if I butcher any pronunciations. Feel free to correct me. The first card I have is Mansi Anamali. If you would like to speak on, this is here on tennis courts, dedicated.
Good evening, my name is Mansi Anamla and I'm 11 years old. In the past year I've played a lot of USTA and UTR tournaments and I've come across a lot of talented people who want to play in college or go on tour. To achieve these dreams, we practice about 10 to 15 hours every week, and by taking away these tennis courts, we are left with fewer for practicing, and not everyone can afford private courts. Tennis is expensive enough between tennis rackets and shoes. There are already more pickleball courts than tennis courts in Simi Valley, and it would be easier to keep the sports separate. Instead of converting the tennis courts into pickleball courts, build newer pickleball courts and don't take away tennis. If you need funds for that, we'd be willing to raise them. And please keep tennis courts as tennis courts and pickleball courts as pickleball courts. Thank you.
Thank you, and wonderful job. Thank you very much for speaking. This isn't correlated. I should have said before anybody spoke that there is a policy of just 3 minutes. So please, in general, please keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less. Wonderful job. You were well under 3 minutes. I just wanted everybody to know. Everybody gets an equal 3 minutes.
1 minute, 6 seconds.
The next speaker card I have is for Al Anamali Lakshamana?
Yeah, good evening members here. My name is Annamalai Lakshmanan. I go by Al to make it easy for everyone. I came to work for farmers here back in 20 years ago. I loved Simi Valley. I stayed here, never looked back to go anywhere again, right? That's one of the most things that enticed me to stay here is the parks. I play cricket, I play tennis, I play basketball, I play volleyball. Pretty much I live in the park every weekend, right? So last 10-15 years we've been playing a lot of tennis, and then now I'm playing pickleball, right? Mansi is my daughter, and she plays junior tennis right now. She's in the 11th grade, and she is going to a private coaching and then at Derringer courts, and then she has participated over about hundreds of USTA matches in the past year alone. She picked up tennis during the COVID, and then she is carrying on. And then I see surge in tennis after the COVID, because so many kids is playing tennis. I was so surprised seeing myself firsthand. SoCal is the hotbed for tennis, right? So there are almost 50 to 100 camps that's being conducted right now as we speak this summer itself. She is going to go to at least 3 camps during this summer timeframe, right? In Simi alone, there are about hundreds of kids. They are just doing the kids tennis, right? So she, right now she is SoCal like 70th rank or so, whatever right now, under 12 and under range, right? And there are other 4 kids, they came here, they're also playing tournament level tennis in India. And the point here is, taking the courts, the multi-use courts to a fully converted pickleball, that's going to take time away, practice time away from them, right? Right now, the wait time is, it just at least 1 or 2 hours to go there. If you're lucky, you get on. But the thing is, even if she gets on, somebody else is waiting on her to get out right after the hours, right? That's a problem here. So the request here is, don't convert those multi-use pickleballs. If you are ever to convert, we ask you to convert into a dedicated tennis courts, right? So I play pickleball. I love to have pickleball courts. I would vouch for building a new pickleball court. That's a sport, because I'm getting into my 50s. I can't run as much as I did, and I put a lot of wear and tear on my knees. So I'm going into pickle. I like to play pickle, socializing. That's a good sport. But I would prefer to have a separate pickleball, not impacting the kids, their opportunities to play in high school. Now, you have seen that Royal Eye and Simi Eye, they had made a long way in the last couple of years in tennis. Simi Eye, they made it to sectionals, and then they won a lot of things. So I know a lot of Simi kids, my friends' kids, they made it to those sectional levels with the school tennis. So now she is dreaming to go to Simi Eye or Royal Eye, wherever it is, play varsity tennis and then go into college. So yeah. The request is, the final request is, if you have, and she made a petition, and the change petition, I can give it to a board here, and this is online.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Several people made comments and signed for it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Michael Roblin.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I haven't been here since before COVID, but I've been here before talking for tennis, and I'm just here to speak for tennis. And someone said that they were thinking about converting multi-course youth courts at Lemon and Erringer, and I just prefer that not happen. I've gone from 12 total courts at Lemon and Erringer to 6 now for tennis, and if you convert the multi-use courts, you're only going to gain 2 pickleball courts at each site, and you're going to lose 2 tennis courts, and it's just huge. The tennis courts are always busy at Lemon and Erringer between 5 and 8 p.m. A lot of people who play tennis work during the day. It's the most centrally located courts in Simi. Wood Ranch is pretty far away for most of us who live on the east end. On top of that, Wood Ranch is also used by many people in Thousand Oaks and Moore Park because it's actually closer to them than a lot of people on the east side of Simi. Other than that, that's all I have to say about tennis. I just want to quickly bring up the bocce court lights at Lemon Park. They've been off for months now, and they used to have lights there to play until 10 p.m. And I'm just asking that there be like an on-off button switch put in at the bocce court lights so you can play at night. And the park at Lemon is really dark now, and it would be great if there could be lights at the bocce court just to light up that area of the park. And also they turn the lights off at the picnic area and the exercise area. And those lights there used to really sort of provide a sense of safety at that park. whereas now in the darkness it feels less safe. And I've talked to the park rangers about it, and they agree with me. So, yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes all of the speaker cards, other than the BMX ones, which we'll do during the budget section. But is there anybody in person or on Zoom who would like to make a public statement for an item that is not on the agenda this evening? Not seeing anybody in person.
Chair, I have a quick question for the district manager. Dan, just a rough estimate. And I know it might depend on the site, but there's an offer to fundraise for pickleball courts. And I'm not sure if they're aware of how much that might cost. What's a rough estimate on a pickleball?
Yeah, the last 4 courts we built at Lemon, I believe, about 6 years ago, was about $650,000. So I would guess about $800,000 to build 4 standalone pickleball courts.
So later, I would like to know if the offer still stands on fundraising towards that, or if there's different choices or recommendations that the speakers had tonight. Because I would see that as formidable, but the community is not likely to be able to raise $800,000. If it was $650,000, we'll go with the old number, and that was years ago. There's probably better and more doable solutions so that we could move on to the solutions that could probably or possibly happen. But if anyone wants to surprise me and raise that money, that'd be awesome too.
Chair, if I could, I'd just like to know that I looked into the light situation at the bocce ball courts.
Yes.
See what's going on there. We'll follow up. Staff will follow up on that.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I have not seen anybody unmute or anybody indicate that they'd like to make a public statement for an item not on the agenda. So I will take us to item 5, approval of minutes for the June 7th, 2023 meeting.
Move for approval?
Actually, Chair, I have one. I try to avoid asking for amendments to minutes because I know they're general summaries, but when it does change the meaning, I do want to do it.
Yes.
On page 6, where I was making comments about the Vietnam Memorial Wall, there's a sentence that begins, "He received an email." It actually should read, "The district received an email." So that would be my one request.
Director O'Brien, would you be interested in amending the minutes?
Oh, yeah, as amended is fine.
I'll second.
Could you do a roll call, please?
Director Avila?
Here, aye.
That's okay.
I am here.
Yeah. Director Dinner?
Yes.
Director O'Brien? Yes. Vice Chair Friedman?
Yes.
And Chair Gray.
Aye.
That motion carries with unanimous vote.
Thank you. That will take us to item 6, the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda a member of the board would like to pull?
Go ahead. On item should be easier. Maintenance is for Wayne. It's the service grounds, and it's for Woodcrest repairs, wood fence repairs. I was wondering if that's the Sinaloa Golf Course, the fence along the Sinaloa Golf Course.
Director, which check number is that, if you could?
Okay, thank you, that's it.
What?
Do you have the check number?
Check number.
I think it'd be easier with it, so. Would create environmental specialty.
103-620.
103-620. 620.
I don't believe that's the golf
It was for
course.
the-
Yeah, I'll ask Ms. Pennington if she knows. Mr. Knockoak was not in attendance this evening, so we may have to follow up on that. We do have other wood or concrete fencing, so I'm imagining that that may be related to that item, but I'll ask Ms. Pennington if she's aware.
I can check into the exact location, but it's not the golf course.
So it could be a combination of several locations.
Right, and
Okay.
I can follow up and give you those locations.
However, we are working on the golf course fencing at Sinaloa as well.
Yeah, that was check 103-582.
Check 103-582 is actually the fencing at Sinaloa Golf Course.
And that's complete.
Are there any other questions, or would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second. Could we do roll call?
Director Adela?
Aye.
Director Dennett?
Yes.
Director O'Brien? Aye.
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes.
Chair Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries with unanimous vote.
Thank you. That will take us to item 7, presentations, scheduled items, and public hearings. Presentation of the full-time employee of the month for May 2023.
Thank you, Chair. Director of Administration Teresa Pennington will provide staff's report.
Thank you, Chair Gray and members of the board. It's my pleasure to present this award to Tony, who's with us here this evening. The person who submitted the nomination for Tony stated he's been with the Park District since 2012, when he started working for us at the Vista After School Club. Tony worked there for a number of years before becoming part of the maintenance department. He eventually became a full-time employee and is a great asset to the Park District. Kids and parents from the After School Club loved him and his awesome personality. Staff had the pleasure of working with Tony in the office when he was helping out for a few weeks. He's personable, helpful, and an all-around great guy. Recently, a preschool teacher stated that Tony is amazing. She was holding a party for her class, and Tony made sure to work around the 4-year-olds by waiting until their party was complete before he started working near them to ensure he didn't scare them or distract them from their fun with their peers and parents. The teacher was very appreciative of his efforts and made it a point to make sure he was recognized. It is that type of care that we as employees need to exhibit to our community. Small, simple acts of kindness such as this are what make us a great district. Congratulations, Tony, on your well-deserved Employee of the Month award. And can you come on up?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, can we do a photo?
Yeah, would the board like to join me for the photo?
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. I appreciate it. Congratulations. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Good job. Appreciate it. I want to make sure everybody on staff got an opportunity. No, wait. Okay. Congratulations. Thank you. And goodbye. Have a good evening. That will take us to item A, continued business, which there is none, which takes us to item 9, new business. Subpoint A, approval of Mountain, I'm going to say MRCA preliminary budget for fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington and staff from the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority will present with the report.
Thank you. As a member of the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority Joint Powers Agreement, the district reviews and approves the budget each year for MRCA. This evening, the proposed preliminary budget for fiscal year 23-24 has been submitted for your approval. Mr. Bassam Mossad from MRCA and Melissa Smith from Conejo Recreation and Park District have joined us via Zoom to present the details of the proposed budget. And welcome to you both, and I'll go ahead and hand over the presentation at this time.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. This is Bassam Mossad, Deputy Financial Officer for the MRCA. July 1st, while we continue working on finalizing our budget proposal, which is expected to be ready sometime around approximately in early August. This preliminary budget is based on the estimated actual revenues and expenses from current fiscal year, with some changes to reflect certain updates for current information. The most notable changes that I want to bring your attention to is related to the a big acquisition that we had this fiscal year, banning property acquisition, which was completed, I think, around January of this year. The acquisition is funded by several grants totaling $97 million. It's probably could be the highest or the biggest acquisition that we've ever done. We do not anticipate any acquisition transaction of the same magnitude this year, or this upcoming year, I should say. So you will notice that we have made significant reductions in the appropriate revenue and expense categories. There are also a few other changes that we have made in addition to that big one, and there should be some notes on the sheets before you. For the final budget that we continue to focus on and dedicate most of our resources to actually these days so that we can finalize it in time, our biggest challenges are not much different than they were in the recent years, with the main one being the unfunded segment of our operations, particularly the O&M expenses under our general fund. There always seems to be plenty of opportunities to get funding for capital improvement projects, but not so much when it comes to the necessary maintenance and upkeep of our facilities, which is unfortunate, but it has been always true for us. For that, we unfortunately have to rely on our enterprise revenues streams, which basically are extremely sensitive to fluctuations in the broader economy. So this is always part of our internal discussions, and this is the main aspect of our internal, brainstorming, trying to find solutions to balance our budget. These are all my comments, and unless you have any questions for me or Melissa.
Are there any board questions following the report? Director Avila?
I'll move approval.
I've got comments on it, but I just don't have any questions.
Okay. That will take us to.
I'll second.
Oh, there hasn't been a motion, but we'll do public comment on this item if anybody would like to speak on this item. Not seeing anyone in person. Is anybody on Zoom wish to comment on this item? I am not seeing anybody unmute themselves, which will take us to board comment.
I'm going to support approving the budget because MRCA does good work across Southern California, and I like that. But I am jealous when I see the land acquisitions in other areas and the programs in other areas that we don't have as much here. So I'd like to see the land acquisitions here since we're a partner with MRCA. And I want to know more about what we can do because it's a priority of our community. State Assembly member Jackie Irwin put money in the state budget for us to buy land. And I want to know what more we can do together to get that done. We want and need attention in our area too for land acquisitions and programs. We do have a diverse community that lacks access and involvement in open space and nature. Many kids in our schools have no idea about nature in our local hills. I remember when I brought in a presentation and they mentioned mountain lions, and our students had no idea that mountain lions lived in our area. So this is not just an issue in any one community, but in our community too. So programs, but primarily the land acquisitions. So if we're going to improve this each year, I would like to see that some of that attention is coming to our area to get some of those deals done. And then second to that, Dan, I would like to invite some of the MRCA staff just to meet with our staff and myself, maybe another board member on the Open Space Committee, maybe tour the area in the upcoming future. So Joe Edmondson and any staff members that he sees fit to bring with him.
Okay.
I do like every one of those posts where they acquire open space across Southern California, but looking forward to seeing more of those here.
Any other board comments? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll motion to approve the budget for MRCA.
I'll second.
Could you roll call, please?
Director Avila,
Aye.
Director Dennert,
Yes.
Director O'Brien,
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman,
Yes.
and Chair Gray.
Aye.
Our motion passes with unanimous vote.
Thank you. That will take us to item B, adoption of preliminary district operation and capital improvement budget for fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you, Chair and Board. I'll ask Alex to put up a brief PowerPoint that we have. The PowerPoint's included as part of the written packet as well. Chair and Board, the district held a draft preliminary budget meeting on May 10th. At that time, the board took public input and also gave staff direction on any changes that it would like to see on in the draft budget to come back for review during the adoption of the preliminary budget. So that's what's before you this evening. The staff report and the packet information has all of the detailed budget items in there and the budget document with the necessary detail. I'm going to walk you through a summary of that. I'm going to start with capital. Looks like it's a little out of whack there for some reason. But anyhow, since the board last reviewed this, we've made changes to the highlighted items based on board input. The first item there is the irrigation system at the golf course. That previously was a $3 million estimate. Since that time, there's been an architect who's worked on a more detailed design of the project, and their updated estimate for the project is $3.6 million. So we've amended that number to reflect that upward cost. We've also added funding for upgrade to sports lighting. We have sports lighting in our field that's anywhere between around 30 years old or so, depending on the park. The board expressed a preference that now was probably time to upgrade those lights to the more current and modern LED. So we've added $450,000 for field lighting at Rancho Madera and Rancho Tapo for the sports fields at those two parks. We've added $1 million for projected costs for sports fields at Rancho Simi Community Park, Duck Pond. That one's a little more expensive because we need new poles at those locations. And then we've also added sports field lighting for the Rancho Santa Su Park, where those softball fields are, and the two existing soccer fields at $1.1 million. The total appropriation is about $2.5 million to upgrade our sports lights. And then finally, we've included, which the board had talked about, some funds to, we have a large project list with varying construction market issues going on and inflation going on. So the board thought it might be wise to appropriate some funds in the event that as these projects are completed and we get bid amounts, that we have sufficient funds to complete the project list. Mind going to the next slide, Alex? I wonder why these are out of the sorts here. Sorry, they're not lined up there. Here is this list. The board reviewed at the preliminary budget workshop, and there are no changes to this list that the board previously reviewed. It's the same list as before. These are capital outlay, anything that we're proposing that is less than $25,000. This is, for the most part, replacement items or deferred items that need to be replaced. Next, Alex. I just wanted to, I put this slide in there because this is the feedback that we got from the community. These are the items that were also on your list, but we added any items that were raised at the hearing on May 10th, just so the board had that information as you look at project priorities against available funding. So I'll let you take a look at that for a minute. I would note that the Oak Park MAC Municipal Advisory Committee heard an item last month, and they have a list of 4 to 6 items that they'd like consideration from the board. That is not on this list because that list hasn't been run by the Oak Park Committee yet, nor Parks and Recreation Committee. I suggested to them that they put it on their agenda and get the committee to look at that list before we forward it to you. So So I expect that list to be on their next meeting agenda in July, and then that would come back to you as part of the one of the public hearings that we have on the budget in August.
Yeah, I heard what you said about that, but can you give us just a heads up of some of those items were?
There's one of the items was some work in Media Creek to create a detention basin so you didn't have to remove vegetation downstream. One of them was upgrading the exercise equipment along Media Creek. I believe one of them was additional pickleball courts, and there was one other one that I don't recall, but it was some work along Media Creek, and then I think primarily pickleball were the items on there. That'll be coming back to the board and to the committee in the next month. The operating budget, this is a summary of the operating budget. All of the funds, we have various funds and they're all balanced. So sufficient revenues and expenditures. The board has always been very proficient and conservative on spending. And this budget is a reflection of that as well. We normally, our revenue ends up coming a little bit higher than we budget, and our expenditures we end up saving some money during the year. So we usually have some savings, but what's being proposed to you is a balanced budget across all of the funds. This is a summary. The board saw this last time of changes from the budget from last year to the current year with any new operating items identified. The board reviewed these at the last meeting. This includes some operating funds for the new activity center. We did add a new maintenance position, so there's 2 maintenance positions in here, and then a reflection of the ongoing cost of the community outreach position. And then these are one-time items that are on the capital outlay list, and also vehicle replacement. The only change to the list from when you last saw was the addition of the second new maintenance position, which is needed for workload issues. So with that, board, your kind of direction to staff tonight would be to just confirm the capital list and the capital outlay items, to confirm the operating budget, what's proposed, and then any additional items the board members may want to address. I would note that at our last meeting, the board brought up a couple of things. One, I believe Director Dennert wanted to consider the idea of bringing back the Huck Finn Fishing Derby, which I understand we did for about 35 years. It was this, I think the last time we did it was in 2019. And so we could, if the board wanted, amend the budget to include funds for that. That would be about $15,000 in estimated cost for that event. And then Director Avila was interested in potentially including some funds in the budget to bring back the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in 2025. We could include deposit funds in this budget and then include the total cost of bringing the wall back of about $40,000 in the 2024-2025 budget. Next steps, tonight's your preliminary approval of the preliminary budget. We submit the assessments to the county. We have 2 public hearings, one on July 19th that focused on the Simi Valley area of the budget, one on August 2nd that focused on the Oak Park area of the budget, and then final adoption of the budget in September, October. And that concludes staff's report. I just want to remind for those in attendance, we usually take questions of staff on the budget, and we open up for public hearing, and then it goes back to the board for comment and deliberation.
Thank you. Any board questions at this time?
I just have a couple questions. We have sufficient funds in reserve to fund a new BMX track. Is that correct, Dan?
Correct. We have a reserve capital fund that's not appropriated to any particular project, but there are sufficient funds in reserve should the board want to consider that.
Okay, so the funds are there, but technically at this moment they're not in the budget.
Correct.
Those are my questions. I'll have a lot of comments later.
Thank you. Director Dennert?
Dan, what's the direction you received from the board so far in BMX?
Pardon me, the direction?
Yeah, so the direction you received so far on BMX as far as the budget goes?
The last time we spoke, we looked at the operating plan with the community to make sure that we had folks that could operate it. At the time, the board had decided, we like the operating plan, and you directed me to work with the city to go renew the lease as we were sharing property with the city to build it on. So we're in the process of doing that. I have not gotten any specific direction to appropriate funds yet. There was also the direction regarding the environmental work that needs to be done, but we were waiting for the lease on that. So it was basically to work with the city on getting the land, and the board was kind of waiting for a decision on to appropriate, I think, until we had that land secured to build the project.
The reason I ask is obviously we have some speakers tonight, and the direction we've given staff before is to proceed with negotiating for the land.
Correct.
So if they were here to convince us to support it, we've given you direction to support it.
Correct. Yes, we and the staff have been moving forward on building the track, subject to getting the land back that we needed to build it. As the board knows, we've been through several iterations of finding property at different locations to build the track, and we haven't come up with anything sufficient other than the property that we had been working with the city on previously, which is city-owned property. So that's kind of the site that the board had selected for us to pursue.
I asked that because I definitely want feedback from the community, but if someone's here to tell us you should build a BMX track, we've expressed our opinion that we want to build a BMX track.
Yes, the board has been very firm on saying we want to move forward with the BMX track.
May I follow up on
Yes, please.
Director Dennett's questions? Dan, in your discussions with the city, at one point, was it your understanding from the city manager that the city would have the BMX item on their agenda earlier this year in January or February?
Yes.
And in your discussions with the city, there was a verbal or tentative lease agreement reached for a lengthier period of time than what we had under the previous agreement with the city. Is that right?
To renew the lease, I don't remember the specifics about the length of time, but to renew the lease, yes.
And as part of that, did the city, as a condition of that, have a vision that they wanted you and your staff to work on in terms of going forward with the project?
Yes, there was a plan to work on a broader vision to include the BMX track, yes.
And as part of the work that you and the staff did you provide the city with a master plan for that vision?
A conceptual plan, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Then I will open it up.
Excuse me.
Oh, yes.
I just want to comment, at one time we did submit and have approved a plan to move forward, which we were working with the city. And we had conditions applied to the
All right.
BMX track.
This is not time for comments, is that correct? This is question, because I have comments about all that too. I was just trying to wait until the comment period. I have plenty of comments about all that.
Okay.
Actually, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that we had an issue about the COVID money and the Edison money, and if and when that comes in, we can do all the lighting at once. Is that still is that still
Separate from the BMX track?
Yeah, I'm not talking about BMX.
Yeah,
Right now, sorry.
I'm feeling more comfortable about our revenue, our funding sources.
Good.
So I think we do have sufficient funds at this point. If for some reason that were to not materialize,
Yeah.
I'd bring the budget back as part of October and have a discussion about the implications of such. But at this point, I'm feeling pretty good about it. If that changes, we have several meetings coming up related to the budget where we can revisit that and see what we
have a sort of a loose plan B just in case.
correct.
That's
Yes.
what I wondered.
I'm assuming no further board questions. So I will move to public comment. I have one comment card and then followed by speaker cards. One comment card from Nicole Berry that is for continued support of the BMX track. Then I have a speaker card, Michael Burr, regarding BMX track.
Well, thank you for having us. Yeah, we're still here. We just want to let you guys know that our whole team is still here, ready. No, that's what it is. That our whole team is still here, and we're ready to, move along with this project, and hopefully it doesn't take too long, so we don't all end up disappearing. So, I mean, we've been here for 4 years, strong. I mean, hopefully we can see some steps moving forward. We did go to a city council meeting last week, hoping to get on their schedule so we can present our whole thing. And yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that we're still here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker card I have is for Monica McClare.
Hello everyone, I'm Monica McClure of the Bike Guy Bicycle Shop here in Simi Valley. We are a BMX-based bicycle shop. 90% of our business is BMX, and I did see some commentary or question as to whether or not BMX is even relevant today. I saw that just with some other people talking about it, and whether or not the track was something that we should move forward with, if it's a good expenditure. I just want to say, yes, it's alive and well. There are over 90,000 members in USA BMX, and we really need to get this going. We've waited over 4 years. I'm not really sure where we're at. It sounds like there's a conceptual plan, but then no lease, whichever. I just love to see it happen. And I'm here to say BMX is alive and well. We've been patient. Our kids need it. Our community needs it. And I just want to say, let's do it.
Monica, who questioned the relevancy of it?
It was somewhere online in some commentary. It was, I think someone was, someone was saying like a board member or someone said, was something about, and I can't say verbatim, but it had to do with spending the money on the BMX track versus maintenance issues on other areas, such as the equestrian center and other things. And that's where I'm coming up with it, because it absolutely is an expenditure you guys should make. I don't know the accuracy of that. I just wanted to say that we really need it. With the drug use being an all-time high and kids on their screens and all this stuff, I'm probably rambling on too much, but kids really need this. They really need to be active. They need to be outdoors. And not everyone's into football, baseball, and all that other stuff. So some are skateboarders and BMXers, and my business needs that clientele to survive. And we love them, and we still see them every day. So they're still up there riding. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
The last speaker card I have is for Chris Quinn.
I'm just here to kind of reiterate, what everybody here is saying about the BMX track. I have 2 young kids, 5 and 6 now, 6 and 3. He's actually out at Camarillo right now. My family split up. We're trying to keep him going. Something that I grew up here, moved here in '82, I think. And, it's always something that's part of my life. We always had it. Always assumed I could raise my kids here doing what I did. And, we don't have it. So it's a bummer. And my oldest, he was old enough to ride at Sycamore BMX before they shut down. And I'd like to, get him back to his home track and show him that we can actually, pull together and get something done right there. So I know it's kind of a little micro thing or a little community here, but I've been here my whole life, and this is something I've always enjoyed, and now I got to go other places to do it. So it's kind of a lot of bummer, honestly. So to reiterate what Monica said, when I was a kid, when the track was shut down,
all us knucklehead kids went up in the hills, and all we did was get in trouble. Got a lot of buddies that never came back from that. You know, they struggled their whole life to get out of the trouble that they got into with, you know, nowhere to go when we were kids. So there's always, you know, baseball, soccer, all the stick and ball sports are represented. There's tons of people, tons of clubs. We got our little group here, and it's good. You know, it's good for the kids. It's good for everybody. It's good for the families. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that, you know, this is something that means a lot to a lot of people around here. So thank you for your time, and you know, give us good luck, please.
Thank you. I have one more speaker card from Christopher Heathcote.
Hi there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me. I didn't grow up in Simi Valley, but I feel I did, being here since 17 years old, 1988 to be exact. And a long-time customer of the Bike Guy shop, Miss Monica, was speaking, and I agree with everything she and the gentleman, and I support it, and I guess that's what I'm here to say. Definitely need the bike track. My kids did not grow up like a lot of their families and children did, but we definitely watched it and were there to support it. We were on the baseball, soccer teams that we're talking about, but we enjoyed watching it, and we enjoyed seeing the kids flourish from it and keep out of trouble, like the other gentleman said. So lastly, I'll donate 2 hours a day to get it up, free of my time, no charge, until it's complete. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Those are all the speaker cards I have, but if you would feel free to leave it and you can speak next.
Thank you so much. I wasn't planning on speaking. I dropped in. I don't live in Simi Valley, but my wife's from Simi Valley. I married a Simi Valley girl. I didn't see a BMX track for probably 40 years, and that's what I did as a kid. I love BMX. It was just a happy place. I love all sports, but BMX was just cool. And we went to the Simi BMX track for her brother, who was big-time BMX racers. I went to the Simi track, and it was the first track I saw, and I went, whoa, this is a nice track. I love that track. I wanted to ride that track. I hadn't ridden in 30 years. And then I heard it got tore down. I was sad. I was super bummed. Because now I'm racing again, and I never got to ride that track. So I got two boys that are into, like some of the other people that I heard talking. They're into BMX, and we have one track kind of nearby, and that's all we got. And I live in Carpinteria, but I would love to come to Simi Valley and ride BMX again. So I encourage you guys, BMX is a good thing. BMX tracks are special. Like, you can't ride a BMX, like, you can go over in the hills and build the jump, do whatever you want. But a BMX track is a special thing. It has a gate, and you go fast, and it's chaos, and it's cool. And it's just a cool thing. The family vibe is good. It's just a good thing for kids, so I encourage you guys to please move forward with the BMX track. It'd be a really, really cool thing. Simi Valley track has bred legends. I don't know if any of you are aware of some of the people that have come from the Simi Valley BMX, but there are some big time people. So I think it was kind of a, I don't know, I think it was kind of a shell shock when the Simi Valley track went down. It was kind of a shockwave, I think, through BMX. Once I got back into it, people still talk about it. They're just like, man, they're like, that track was just a track. So I hope you guys bring it back, and bring it back even better. You know, I say bring it back. Thank you for listening to me.
I believe I see Chris has raised his hand. Would you like to make a public comment on this item?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good evening, board. Appreciate you guys taking the time. And again, your continued support, great to hear that. Ed, I know you had your bid for supervisor, but I'm being selfish. We're glad to see you back on the board with us. Just kind of want to remind everybody, Brian and Ed especially, Brian, when you were the chair, you kind of cracked the whip and kind of helped us with a timeline to get the organizational structure to you, the operations plan to you. We have been in March step with you guys every way, and the perception out there from the community is that that same attention to detail and holding people accountable has not been held with your same staff. You gave us timelines, and if we didn't meet the timelines, it was a bad thing for us. You've given staff direction, you've given staff timelines, and I don't think that's been met. I don't think there's been, the perception is there's not a high level of dedication to getting this done from your staff. I think everybody agrees the board is behind this. I would just like to see something, you know, we keep having these conversations. We had them right after the track closed, right before the track closed, after the track closed. It's like a yearly thing. And Dan Slide, this is a recent community request. This isn't a recent community request. We've had this on for 4 years. The previous board promised us the track. 4 years later, we still don't have the track. So we'd like to see some kind of movement. Like Mike Burke said, we're all here. I'm on the East Coast right now. I'm on Gushmo, the hotel room. It's 10:30 at night. I mean, the dedication is there for the people that want this track. You've heard from previous people, the level of support is there. We just need to have a fire within your staff to get this going. That was it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments on this item? I'm not seeing anyone in person.
Hi, Travis, can I comment?
Yes, go ahead, Travis.
Hi, I'll turn my camera on real quick. I'm here at San Diego BMX right now. I'm very raised watching my kids race. I'm a longtime Simi Valley resident, and I support the track, obviously. I think we're really missing out on our track anymore. I grew up riding Sycamore BMX, and it's just a really great activity for the kids, keeping them clean, and yeah, I support it, and hopefully we can bring it back. Thanks.
Is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to make public comment on this item? I see Dr. Sean has unmuted. Would you like to make any public comment?
Yes, hey, I too am on the East Coast. I wanted to, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I too am on the East Coast. I'm actually out here at a lacrosse tournament, but I thought it was that important that I jump on the call like Chris did. One, thank Brian on the board for really showing the support. He has been out, you know, he came out to Rick McClure's kind of like visual, really reassured us BMX people that the board is behind us. And I want to thank you and thank him personally. I've had several conversations with him, you know, in the last year or so about this, and it is important. It was a huge loss for our family to not have BMX. You know, my oldest son is a Paralympian, trying to be in the Paralympics, and my oldest is a lacrosse player. We've moved on from there, but we miss BMX, and I'm sure anybody in this room is really missing BMX this week because we lost a legend this week. That is important to the BMX family. And I just want to point out, and you know, we haven't had a track in 4 years, but we still are a family and we still work together. And it is, you know, the same, keeping kids clean in the dirt. That's all I want to say. I want to thank you guys, and I do not know how to work this thing to get one.
Thank you. The iPhone SW has just unmuted. Would you like to make a public comment on this item?
Yes, I would. Thank you for, number one, all of your volunteerism and community involvement. Board members of Rancho City Recreation Park District, which I was a proud park ranger for 5 years now. And I'd just like to say, not only the BMX racing is good for the kids and it's a great sport, but it's also the socialization. A lot of the kids that I know now that are adults, driving, going to college, they grew up together. They race together. I have a myriad of friends that I've developed, including Dr. Sean, who just talked, that I would have never known, I would have never met in my life. And it enriched it, it made it better, and I still love these people till to this day. So I think it's important to resurrect this track, not just for the BMX racing, but for the socialization aspect. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom or here in the audience who would like to make a public comment on this item? Yes, please come forward.
Sorry, I didn't fill out a card. I just got a couple of items I wanted to ask you. You guys are talking about, you've had conversations regarding leases, properties, and that sort of thing. Part one of the question is, what kind of locations have you guys actually physically discussed rather than just talking about general land? You guys have locations. I know you guys did have that one on Easy Street originally back in the day, pre-COVID. Is there other locations that you guys are looking at and discussing, or is it still up in the air? My second part of my topic that I'm asking about is also the Rick McClure Memorial with that had to do with the bike path that we spoke about last time that I was here. What was the latest on that? And the third and last part is that you guys have the funds. Let's get a location, because I rode Sycamore BMX. I brought my kids riding up on BMX. You know, I had to stop because I can't take a broken collarbone the way my kids can. But we all rode that, and we had a lot of fun in the dirt, and it was a good family location, you know, to get the kids out of the street and get them doing something physical. So, I mean, it's paramount to our kids' health. Thank you.
Would staff could briefly answer those questions or answer those questions once we finish?
Yeah, I think over the course of the last several years, there's a number of specific locations. I can point you to the areas that we looked at in staff reports that we reviewed with the board. So there are specific locations that we've looked at. So relative to property, we what's that?
Where would they be?
I don't remember them off the top of my head, but I can direct you to the discussions that we've had, or if you want to give me a call, we can do that.
Dan, by look at them, you mean we looked at them and we're not able to build it there, correct?
Correct, yes. All the other locations where we own property, it's the key is where the park district owns property. There's not a sufficient location where we actually own the property. If we're looking at location that we own, then we've got to look at buying the property, which then obviously increases the cost of the project. So.
And then the last part, the question he asked was the current location was off of Easy Street?
Correct. Yeah, that's the location we're looking at now. That was the property that was the subject of the lease that we're pursuing now.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Yes.
Thank you guys so much for having us. I presented to you guys, I think about a year ago, and like my husband said, we went to the city council meeting a week or so ago, and I got up and told them that I am happy to present the presentation that I presented to all of you guys, and thank you guys for your support for coming out. We're willing still here to do whatever it takes to partner with you guys and him. Whatever you need from us, I just wanted to let you know that I am happy to help in any way. Still here, still happy to help. So thank you for your support, and like I said, anything you need, just let me know, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone, and I believe we have moved through all commentators on Zoom. And I'm seeing no other indication, so that will take us to board comments. I believe Director Al.
I think Elaine was speaking.
Oh, Director Freeman, did you? Vice Chair Freeman?
I just wanted to say that we have been committed to the BMX track for a long time. And we examined multiple properties, and we had an agreement with the city on the old 118 property. We filed, we had an approved site plan. We negotiated some modifications to that site plan. We moved the dirt from Sycamore to the site so that the dirt is there, waiting for the BMX track to come to life. And then there were some environmental issues which delayed our implementation of the BMX track. And now we're back negotiating with the city again. My point in all of this is that we have been committed. We have done work on it. We had approvals on a site plan with the city and conditions in order to implement that BMX track. So I just wanted to assure you that it hasn't been through lack of effort, that the district has put a lot of effort forward for the BMX track. And we do have the monies, as was noted during our budget process, when we can move forward.
Director Avila, did you want to go next, or would you defer? Director Denner.
We're going to defer to Ed because he's much better spoken than myself, and I believe in it strongly enough. I want him to go ahead.
I'll get to that. All right, so this is, we're going to get to BMX. This is about the capital budget and approving it and priorities. So I just want to say that I've thought about it since our initial project priorities meeting in early May, where various groups have presented, and I just want to, because I do believe the whole idea here is we have a certain amount of money and then we need to prioritize how that money is spent. And I have adjusted my priorities based on reflecting on that meeting as well as information we received. So I want to start off with that. And I was trying to let other people speak. I'm going to be a while here. So I have the activity center as 1, but I have it as a 1A at this point. 1B would be completing a BMX track. And I'm going to talk about that when I conclude. Number 3, as we discussed before, would be taking care of existing field lighting. There's clearly a safety issue with that. Our fields are used extensively, and that's where it would rank for me. And then number 4 would be the completion of Rancho Santa Susana Park, but without the parking lot being a priority. If cost becomes an issue, if other projects become an issue, I would defer the parking lot until we took care of other priorities. And then number 5, not something that we're ready to go with, but I think we need to explore, and I've mentioned this before, sooner rather than later, is the issue of a lack of sufficient pickleball courts. So that would be how I rank my top 5 priorities. I do want to make comments about other things that have come up since that initial project priorities meeting, and then we'll get to BMX. We did talk about, I do think work should continue on the community pool area as practical. That is important to our community, so I don't want to say that's not. I was merely trying to list my top 5 priorities as I see them. Also, if the money is there and and it's not delaying any other projects that are higher on the priority list, then I would go ahead and then do the parking lot at Rancho Santa Susana Park, as well as the other improvements there. Now, I want to make a comment about equestrian. I know one of the speakers addressed it here tonight. There was at one point, I think it was unfortunate because I don't think it was the purpose of the project priorities meeting, but there was at one point an attempt to try to equate BMX and equestrian and say whether one was more important than the other. And then there was an article in the local newspaper that took some things out of context. And for me, it's never been about BMX versus equestrian. That was brought up by another director. Ideally, at some point, we have the money to do all of these projects. And the whole idea with project priorities was listing priorities. And for me, it's not that one is better than the other. For some people, one may be more important than the other. But the BMX one just is higher on the priority list for reasons that I'll explain. But I don't think it ever should have come down it was a rather odd combination, frankly, to a mention of a BMX versus equestrian issue. I do want to say, so there's no misunderstanding about that, I thought the equestrian people made a great presentation. They're a great group. It was a focused presentation. You know, we needed to have some of the issues cleaned up about how their operating plan was going to generate revenue. And the whole idea is when we do that, at whatever time that comes, it does have over a $300,000 ticket price. To do it the right way, and I've mentioned this before, and I think Josh says it better than I do, but you know, if we're going to do something, we should do it the right way, not halfway, and that's part of the consideration there as well. So I wanted to mention that. And then as far as, I do want to follow up just a little bit. I would think this is a no-brainer of an issue, but since I brought it up, I do want to mention I do think we should include the AV Memorial Wall. If I'm understanding, it's going to be decommissioned, so May of 2025 would be our last chance to get it. I did speak with Nigel, who runs the Veterans Museum, and yeah, he thought it was a great idea, and we should definitely go forward with it. We have a great veterans community, a great veterans plaza, and you know, the community just comes in droves to look at that wall the other 2 times that we've had it. So I think that's really important. All right. So now BMX and the Activity Center. So I think we're all excited and we're all looking forward to the opening of the Activity Center, which hopefully will be within the next 2 years. It's a great accomplishment and it's an exciting accomplishment. But if we do not get a BMX track out here for the BMX community and for the rest of the community, some of that excitement will be marred. I made a comment to Dan last week because we had a serious discussion when I was meeting with Dan and Wayne, but I wanted to bring some levity to it. But everyone knows how much I, sarcasm, love the stick tree logo, part of our logo. And I said one of the things I was hoping to do when we open the Activity Center is to permanently get rid of the stick tree logo. But if we don't have a BMX track going when we open that Activity Center, I think that should stay kind of as an asterisk about how we didn't get the job completely done. So there was mention of the City Council meeting. I was there, Director Dennett was there, we were there in support of the BMX community. It was attended by members of Sycamore BMX who lost their track. It was also, not only did they speak, not only did Director Denner speak, not only did I speak, but there were residents who participate in BMX that have no affiliation with Sycamore BMX that got word through social media about the City Council meeting, who showed up and spoke in support. I spoke to one of the people during another agenda item at the City Council meeting, and he has to take his kids up to Camarillo. There were people who spoke at the City Council meeting who were not there for BMX, who after hearing the speakers spoke in support of BMX. I can tell you that for the past 6.5 years, from people who participate in BMX as well as those who don't, when you run into people, when you knock on people's doors, it is the most frequent subject that comes up. So this is not an item that is for a small number of people or for a small group of people. It is an item that has massive community interest, and I can tell you the comments that I've seen on social media from people who I'm pretty confident, like me, have never participated in BMX, have shown strong support for getting a BMX track back here in the community. Now, the response from the city council, I'm going to call it like I see it, it's weak and disappointing. For those of us who were there in support of BMX, that there wasn't even an issue on it. We all had the instant same reaction. They punted the issue. There was no hint of even trying to put it on their agenda. There was one point at which the city manager appeared to whisper something to the mayor, and the mayor very politely, kindly to the BMX people, started mentioning issues like access roads and parking issues. They're not issues as far as actually putting a BMX track there. Now, one of the other things that was mentioned by a couple of city council members is there had been a previous agreement, a previous lease agreement with the city, and they didn't understand why that didn't go through. I don't understand why that would be relevant to where we are right now, which I'm going to discuss in a minute. But because of that, I want everybody to understand and be clear on the history of the BMX issue, so that there's no misunderstanding. So prior to the majority of our current board members being on the board, the park board and the park district agreed to sell the Sycamore property. That was a really good deal for Rancho Simi Park District. There is no question about it. And therefore, it was a really good deal for the community. It was a job well done. However, the BMX community got the short end of the straw. It was not a perfect deal. It was not ideal, because one group, one important group, got completely left out. In hindsight, if we look at it properly, that issue should have been completely resolved. It was not. Now, subsequent to that, there have been prior efforts to put a BMX track in our community. We had plans to do that. We had a lease with the city. That is all accurate. We did not move forward aggressively with those plans, and I'll just indicate a few of the reasons why so that everybody's on the same page. And there's a little bit of, I don't want to call it blame, because I think everyone was trying to do the best they could here. But there was a little bit of concern in a lot of areas. There was a popular, long-time operator of the track who was clearly going to give up the position. Because of that, there were concerns by the board and our staff and others that the track, about how the track would be operated and maintained. We needed a plan for how that track was going to be operated and maintained. And there was a period of time where we were not getting that. There was also the issue of the pandemic in 2020, which essentially shut things down and caused issues of not having financial clarity. There was concern about whether the project was going to be too costly. And there were other priorities at the time, and part of the cost was the concern about the environmental issues. There was also concern expressed by our staff about, for the amount of money that we were going to expend, was a 15-year guarantee of a lease of the land sufficient? And there was concern that it was not lengthy enough. So there were issues at all levels about the operation from Sycamore BMX, about our ability to fund the project, and about whether or not the city had given us the property for a long enough period of time. Because of that, in 2020, we did not pursue the BMX track, and quite frankly, I regret that, and I regret that we were not more aggressive about it. And I own that, along with all of the other concerns that were there. The concerns were legitimate, But knowing where we are now and knowing the situation as it is now, I personally would have been more aggressive at that time about the support of the BMX track. But now we have to look at where we are now and where we are as of 2022, because a lot has changed. Sycamore BMX came to us with an outstanding group that went well above and beyond what we wanted in terms of an operational and being able to maintain the track. They came with us with a business plan, as I told the city council, that would be the envy of even some of your greatest entrepreneurs. It was something that was well more than they needed to do and more than we could expect. It covered not only operational and management, but it gave us something that we wanted, and that was a plan for how, other than Sycamore BMX, how the public would be able to use the track. It's exactly what we hoped for, and it was so well done. So they have now done their part. They have done more than their part. And I want to just emphasize so that anyone who's listening to this understands. You're talking about a group of people, they have children, they have jobs, and they came to us with this plan as if this was their full-time job. They have gone all out, and they are there now, and they are in place now. They have given their time, they have given their devotion, and they have put their passion behind this project. Forget where we were in 2019 or 2020. That's where we were as of 2022, and that's where we are now. We also now have clarity on funding and being able to fund the project. And that's why I asked Dan the question before the public comments. We have the money, it's in reserve. We now need to dedicate that money to fund the project. So we have done most of what we need to do. We have that one more step that we need to do, and we should do that tonight. We also developed the framework for a longer lease with the city and a better lease with the city and a renewed lease with the city. The city, and I asked Dan some questions about this before the public commented, agreed to that renewed lease with certain conditions. And those certain conditions had to do with the vision that the city apparently has for that land. Now, I don't know that there's anybody in the public that has been clamoring for any particular vision there, but I applaud visions. I think they're great things. I think anything that's an improvement, I think it's great. So they imposed those conditions, and our staff, with a master plan, met those conditions to help provide the city with that vision. We were given the understanding that the city would put this item on their agenda earlier this year. That would be January or February of 2023. The months passed, and it did not happen. So the BMX community showed up at the city council meeting. Again, just some excellent speakers, including some of the youth who used the track, and the city still did not put the item on their agenda. And so my question would be to city officials, what happened? Why was it not put on the agenda? Where is the transparency? You have had a BMX community that has been without a track for more than 4 years. There are reasons for that on all levels as to why it hasn't happened sooner. But everything was in place for it to happen, and for it to happen earlier this year, and it has not happened. So at this point, what my request would be from the city is some transparency. Let us know what's going on. Put it on your agenda. Tell us something. But let us know what's happening here. And at a minimum, give an answer to the BMX community. And I want to point out that further delaying, further punting the issue is the equivalent of saying no. You now have an awesome management and operational team in place from the BMX community. If there is no follow-through on that, you risk losing that team. And you also keep running the clock on how long the BMX community is without their track. The issues of access roads and parking, they may have to do with some greater vision, but they do not preclude having the BMX track there. And that's what everyone needs to understand. So, Sycamore BMX has done their part. They have done more than their part. And that's where we stand right now at this moment, and that's where we've stood for the past year. At that point, when they presented to us, we had made requests from them in 2019 and 2020, and then even beyond, and they followed through on every aspect of those requests and more than that. They have done their part and more than their part. Chris DeSantis, Mike Berg, I always forget her first name, but I think it's Nicole Berg, and other members have put forth a monumental effort. They're just regular, normal, everyday people with kids trying to help bring the BMX track. These are the people we're speaking to here. We're not speaking to a concept. We're talking about people. They have done their part. That box is checked. But we don't want to lose that. Here at the Park District, we have mostly done our part now. Whatever's happened before, whatever didn't happen before, we have now mostly done our part. We have one more step, and tonight we should appropriate the funds to fund the project, to leave no doubt in anyone's mind that we have then fully done our part. And now the city needs to do their part. We ask politely, I request now to the city, put this item on your agenda immediately and give us the land to place the BMX track so we can start putting the track together immediately. Again, the passion for this project is great. And I'm going to leave with this prediction. I say this for my fellow board members, to the district manager and the executive staff here, to the city manager, to the mayor, and to each city council member. If you support this, if you fully are ready to go forward with this now, you are making the right choice. And for those who oppose it, you're going to be on the wrong side of history in this community. I have seen so many people come through here with so many requests and so much eagerness and so much passion. I can tell you repeatedly on projects, and I keep trying to tell Director Dennert this, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Good people, good, meaningful people come forward and say, we're going to provide you with this great plan. We're going to provide you with this fundraising. And I have not ever seen it happen until this time. It just because people don't have the time, they may not have the know-how, they may not have the energy. But I've always said, you can't count on the groups to do it. We have to make the decisions on our own. But this one case was different. Sycamore BMX came through. They gave us what we asked for and what we wanted and more. So again, for those who oppose, that is just my prediction. In this community, you're going to wind up on the wrong side of history. And so excuse me one moment. I know there's going to be other comments, but I'm just going to conclude with this. I am going to make the motion that we follow the staff recommendation as far as the budget, but with the following amendments. That we appropriate the available funds for the BMX track and make it part of our budget. And that we also include the Huck Finn Fishing Derby and the AV Memorial Wall as part of that budget.
Director Denver? We have a motion, but can we second that after?
Yeah.
The number one issue in our community, especially what they expect from the park district, is there needs to be more for kids to do. So they're expecting us to figure out the details and get it done. As a teacher, I have students that play all sorts of sports, including my own kids. And there's some students that play different sports and BMX, but there's some kids that don't fit in somewhere else and they need something else to do. Our community has a mountain bike team. We're a destination for mountain biking. Saturday and Sunday, you can see people at Corriganville and Rocky Beach just doing laps. My bike is in the back there. When you're a board member, you can park inside the building. Our rodeo is popular, but we need this track for young people. Although old people can ride it too, just to clarify. I see Chris more often than some of my cousins at this point. Shout out Corey and Kevin. But Chris, thanks for coming out tonight. Chris, we need to lobby our city council to show them the importance of it, to share the vision with it, to share with them with the plan, to let them know the details of it. And I disagreed with the public speaker that said our staff was a hold up on it. Our staff has been given the direction from the board to follow through with the plan and do their best to work with the city. We've already said it was a priority in our budget. There's a motion that I'm going to second to appropriate the money officially, but even before that, it was a priority in our budget. We don't have unlimited time to get this going, as in, we could pretend, but if we don't build it and get it going, the chances of it ever happening decline. Because we have a good team together right now, we have a budget, we have a plan for operations, we got what we need to get it done now. I would like to discuss the July and August meeting after other board members talk. The July and August city council meetings, we've spoken about this together, but maybe talk about who would go because we have a valuable team and each of us might have a different argument or skills in making a persuasive argument. So I want to discuss afterwards who can make the July and August meeting at the city council. And also, Dan, it was during the pandemic, so it's a little bit rough, but I frequently had asked you, has the BMX community come back to us with a business plan? And the reason I kept doing that, one of the reasons was I wanted to make another argument for it. But without a business plan, I didn't have another argument for it to come back to the board. But they provided that business plan that went beyond what I was asking for, so I appreciate that. And Elaine, you brought this back up to our attention to review a BMX park. So I appreciate your attention to that too, because it takes a team to get it done. So thank you for that. So the kids are waiting, the families have a business plan. The park district's budget for it. Now we need to partner with the city to get it done.
Yeah, I just, it occurred to me the city could be waiting for us to appropriate the funds before they put it on their agenda. Is that possible? They just haven't gotten it on the agenda.
No.
But nobody knows what the holdup is.
But at least you've given them an hour if you want one, so I do appreciate that.
In a public meeting,
if that's what it takes for them to put it on their next agenda, then I applaud you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's high time we got this done. Really, it's been sitting around too long, and for a variety of reasons that were out of our control, truly. But now that we have a place and a business plan and the funds, let's move forward. I am still concerned about district-wide deferred maintenance, but there's always going to be that. I suppose we're always going to have that. And the equestrian center also, I think. But let's get the BMX track done.
Vice Chair Freeman?
I just want to go back a little further too, because I was on the board when we sold the property, as with Director O'Brien. As soon as we sold the property, we went and we have a piece of property on Tampa Canyon up the road on the way to Lost Canyon. And we had a permit with the County of Ventura. We designed the BMX track. We were moving forward, and then It would have been done within, because it's our property, and it would have been done within a year at that time. And what happened was we found that the area geologically was unstable and we couldn't do any grading. If we had graded, there would have been a potential of slides and other problems. So then we had to pull that after that process, and then we started looking for other property, and we found the city property, and then that process started. So I want to just assure you, I don't think there's ever been a time when this board hasn't been committed to getting the BMX track built. I mean, it's been a whole series of stop and starts, and I agree that that has been difficult, but it hasn't been from lack of trying. I mean, I can tell you this. In terms of the budget, I think we've already made the commitment to the BMX track. I don't think we need to put it as a line item until we know that we have an agreement for the land. I don't want to put in something that I'm not 100% sure is going to happen. I feel confident, but I would rather keep the money set aside in our reserve fund with the commitment to the BMX people. I agree it's important, but I would prefer to keep the list of capital projects as is, since we have some budget time. We won't be finalizing it till September, and by then maybe we'll have more information, and then I'd be in a position to adjust once I know or have more information. And I do want to accommodate the equestrians in some way, because they've had that for 30 years, and the district hasn't done anything. It's not pricing one against the other, it's just bringing forward the equestrian as well, and hopefully in the reserve funds we can find money for that. So that's my position.
Thank you. I will say, as I have every time this has come up, I continue to support the BMX track. Last time many of you came, I advocated go talk to City Council, go push them. It is incredibly frustrating that we expected in January to have more surety on what was going to happen, what any holdup would be, and we are now in June. I agree with my colleagues, it is incredibly frustrating, and thank you to the community who did go to the City Council and has gone to pitch that, and I will gladly discuss later. Do we have any issue if we make a motion and approve any sort of motion with then discussing advocacy of that motion? Do we need to discuss it before a motion is passed?
I think we had already made a motion.
But we haven't voted on it yet. That's the distinction.
Right now,
there's no second either.
No second yet. I think he's asking if I second the motion, we vote on it, and then we want to talk about going to City Council, we can still talk about it.
Do we cease discussion once we vote on it?
No, we can be more motions.
No.
Okay.
No, it's no.
That was the one bit of clarity I wanted to make sure we weren't accidentally silencing ourselves.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, I have a question about Ed's motion, which I plan to support. If I seconded his motion and the board agreed to it, and the City Council said no, they had a different use for the property, the money wouldn't be spent, correct?
Correct.
And if we put it into the budget as a line item, appropriated it, and then in September, for some reason, people wanted to change that, they still could, correct?
Correct.
So the money would be dedicated, but not spent until actually, construction starts.
That's right.
I'll second Ed's motion for the current priorities list with.
I have a quick question
amendments.
before we go forward. Has the city indicated that they may not agree to us leasing that property to us, or do we have any reason to think they won't, or?
No.
They're just stalling on getting it on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to emphasize one thing about that. Again, we were under the impression that it would be on their agenda in January or February. I can't, as I did at the City Council meeting, and I'm just going to expressly state it here tonight, time is crucial here for two reasons. The BMX community has been without a track here for over 4 years, number one. Number two, they have, we've all seen it ourselves, a strong team in place right now. Trying to delay it just runs the clock out on the fact that these people have other lives. They've dedicated themselves to this, but they don't have like an indefinite commitment. Life goes on, and delaying or postponing or whatever it is that's going on with the city eventually winds up as a no answer. And these people deserve an answer, and so their actions are speaking louder than words right now. We just need the property for the BMX track. We're willing to work with them on anything else, and we have worked. The staff has worked with them, so they've met their conditions. So time is crucial here.
They might have a choice with the property that they have authority over. That's not the choice I would make or prioritize, and I would understand that they might have a different choice. But I just wanted an answer so that we can discuss it and see what's possible.
Before I call for a vote, I'm going to quickly finish some remarks I wanted to make. Just to make sure I wouldn't be misunderstood, because I know Ed mentioned it, for clarity at least. Appropriating for the BMX, I wouldn't want to stall phase 4, the lights, or the activity center to have the expectation that we have to finish BMX before we finish any other capital project. I would like to go in parallel and continue to push with BMX as well as these other capital projects. I wouldn't want to put any stall on the rest of our calendar in regards to that. And just, I apologize, one quick question. If we were to appropriate, do you appropriate for BMX track, do you imagine you would pull the funds from the, I can't remember if it's CCI or CII that we have in there? No.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The CCI funds would be in addition to the BMX track appropriation.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to comment, I agree with you. I want to keep everything else, including Rancho Santa Susana, on the path it's on. We've got it designed, we're moving forward. We've committed that to a lot of soccer and softball people over the, and so it's been a lot of years for them too. So it's not that I want to put BMX down. I want to keep it on the forefront, but I also want to keep all our other projects going as was stated by our chair.
After the board adopts the budget, I'll be meeting with Douglas and the project team to try to keep all 3 of those things running parallel, including hiring some additional consultant staff if we need to. So we'll try to keep all 3 of those priorities, the BMX track, the activity center, and the park running parallel, which will include the lights for the park as well.
Okay. Thank you. And I apologize for a point of order. Am I able to call a recess in the middle of a discussion item, or do we need to conclude the discussion item? Could we have a vote, call a recess, and then continue the item?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think you can continue the item.
Okay, thank you. I believe there was a motion. Ed's motion?
I seconded it.
And Brian seconded it. Could we do a roll call, please?
Director Avila?
An enthusiastic aye.
Director Denner?
I believe in the words of a young man, let's send it, which means yes.
Director O'Brien?
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Only if all the other projects
I'm
can
sorry.
continue to move
This is a
forward.
vote. Legal counsel, do we need to restart the vote? Because when there's qualifications, it changes the nature of the motion.
Well, I don't know. Are you changing the motion or are you making a statement?
Yes, I understand. I
Should
will
the
vote
statement
yes.
come after
I
the
will
vote?
vote yes, Director Avila.
And Chair Gray?
Aye.
That motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to call a brief 5-minute recess, and we will return at 8:14 to continue this item of discussion. We'll call the meeting back into order.
Recording in progress.
We will continue discussion of item 9B, adoption of preliminary district operations central improvement budget for fiscal year 23-24.
Josh, I wanted to talk about equestrian briefly before we get back to BMX and walking and stuff like that.
Yes.
I just want to clarify for equestrian, I believe it was a letter, not an article, that was in the Acorn, conflating the two issues. Yeah, so it was a letter, just an opinion letter is different than a writer. And then I'm not opposed to doing it, and I agree with Josh. He might have said better, but I'll say you don't want to half-horse something instead of going full measure and doing a good job. I just am concerned about the agreement for managing it, including volunteer hours, and I do believe there should be a fee that they would be able to pay by recruiting more people to participate in their activity. So I know that's going to come back to us, but I just want to clarify, I'm not opposed to fixing up the equestrian center. I agree with Director Freeman. A lot of people have been expecting us to have participated in their activities. It's been there for a long time. And if we didn't fix it up, and with the limitations on what we can do with our property, I wouldn't want it to sit there. It's an asset. So since we don't have a different option of what to do with it, we should fix it up so the community could use it.
Did you also want to lead us in the discussion about July and August?
Sure. So since we've discussed it, we've appropriated the money. We've said we've supported it. There's a city council meeting in July and August, and I would ask that maybe one or more of us, maybe not more than two obviously, but one or two of us go, speaking specifically about BMX and asking to be on the agenda if it's not. And if it is, to support it as an agenda item. So if any board members are available for either July or August, the reason I suggested this is each of us has our strengths and weaknesses in making persuasive arguments. So maybe they'd be happy to see all of us at different times.
Brian,
I'm sorry.
Can I just ask a question of legal counsel? It's not our meeting, it's a city council meeting. We can all speak in our own individual capacity there, correct?
That's correct, you're not limited to two people.
Yeah,
I was just thinking that myself.
Anytime the BMX people are going to be there, as long as there's not some super major conflict, I plan on being there.
So theoretically, we can all show up at once. It wouldn't be a Brown Act. No, we can't. Okay.
Well, wait. That's
it's a
true.
Brown Act.
Yeah, all of you. Yeah.
If we're speaking as individuals and not as board members.
Yes, the problem is it's a meeting. You're creating a meeting.
But their meeting's Brown acted.
But that's true.
I think they can do that.
Yeah, maybe you can. Yeah, let me look into that. But I tentatively, I'm going to say, yeah, you can go.
But we have to have a board action to allow it to happen as a board, as a district, for us to all five go. Would we need
I wonder.
a board action to direct it okay for all five board members to be there?
Well, I don't think it would hurt, but I don't think that's. I don't think it's required. The question is the notice from the city of Simi Valley adequate? Adequate notice of the fact that you are all going to be there at this public meeting. So that's the real question. I think the answer is yes, but let me look into that.
I wonder Brian, I think if I can just clarify between two different things. So if the item was actually on their agenda, then we perhaps would be presenting as a board or a district, correct?
Correct.
That's differentiated from public comments.
Correct. Oh, I see.
I think the question is, during public comments, when the item's not on their agenda, are we allowed to all show up and speak in our individual capacity, or are we limited to two? I think that's really the question.
That was kind of where I was going.
Well, if you're all together, I think you're creating a meeting of the board.
So it's the definition of what together is?
So when I spoke at the city council meeting, I made it clear that I was speaking as a concerned resident and as a board member on my own behalf, not on behalf of the entire board.
Correct, and you didn't mention anything about what the other board members thought, so nor what any of the other city council members thought, so you weren't, so that wasn't an issue.
Just as an alternative, you could designate two folks to meet with council members individually too, if you'd like to consider that.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'd like to be part of that. I think Brian would like to be part of that.
Just offering
We
an
sort of have went
alternative.
this every step of the way.
Alternative during the council meeting, you can request individual meetings with him if you'd like, but it would be limited to 2 of you.
Well, if we start July and August, and I know there's some legal question, but maybe we don't need to address it, and Ed is volunteered to be there unless there's a conflict of every one of them. Is there anybody else that could be there for July?
Do we know the exact dates in July?
The next meeting is July 17, Monday, July 17, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's the next city council.
I can do the 17th or the 24th.
We could also do the 17th or the 24th, I think there's flexibility.
Right, I think to be safe, we probably should limit it to 2 at a meeting, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be available.
Okay, so we can show up on the 17th.
Who's the second designee? Or is it just going to be Ed?
Well, I
I'll
think
say I'll do the 24th.
Is there a meeting on the 24th? Is that what you're saying?
No.
The
17th,
the 31st.
The 31st.
Of July?
Yes.
I'll actually do the 17th.
So Josh will be there with me on the 17th.
I'm just wondering if 3 of you do it over 2 meetings, if that creates the same
Right.
issue and the same topic.
Does it, Brian? It might. Or no, yes or no, Brian? Because it is
Well,
the
I would
same
think
topic.
not. You're not creating, I mean, sorry, let me speak out of mind. I don't think so, because you're at first off, you're at 2 separate meetings, and you're speaking in your individual capacities. So I don't think so, but again, I would want to look into this. I'm not sure that any of it does, other than, like I said, I don't want you to, it to become a meeting or a chain meeting.
I'd recommend we designate 2 in case it can only be 2 for board meetings, and then if we can do a 3rd, we'll add a 3rd, and then Brian can check and we can make plans based on that.
And for the 17th, I would like it to be a different board member. I volunteer if no one could, but my reasoning for that is that the city council hears all of our persuasive arguments.
Well, here, you know, I think that you raise an interesting issue, because I don't want to mess this up because of a Brown Act thing. If, so just as an example, if Josh and I attended one meeting and Brian and I attended another meeting, if having more than 2 is a Brown Act violation, it is technically 3 people then, right? It'd be no different than me discussing one issue with Brian today and then discussing the next issue with Josh tomorrow. So I don't want to risk messing this up on a Brown Act violation.
Let me just cut in for a moment, George, because I just, again, as you know, I'm an old litigator and am only recently into the public meeting arena. So I deferred to one of my partners, Greg Murphy, who's been doing this his entire career, and I asked him whether or not all of you showing up at a notice meeting, even during public comment, and he said that that would be fine and compliant with the Brown Act. So there's not an issue there. I'll look into it further, but that's what he's telling me. So I think you're okay.
Okay. So waiting further details that might alter it, but if that's correct.
I think it's good.
17th, Ed, and who else?
I'll go with the 17th.
And you mentioned as far as meeting individually with city council members, if we decide to do that, is everyone okay if it's me and Brian that do that?
Which date is that again?
Well, Dan was suggesting if we decided to meet individually with city council.
No, I'm fine with that.
All right, and we're good?
And although, Kate, you said you're fine with that, if I wasn't available, Ed could still go and Dan and the chair could find someone else to go, correct?
Yeah.
Like we didn't give direction, we just agreed.
Well,
that one, it's got to be the same 2 because it's not a Notice Brown Act meeting.
Oh,
So it'd have to be the same 2.
Okay.
So if we're going to meet individually, we'll just wait till a time when you're available.
Sounds good.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a defined time.
meeting individually, we might have a better understanding of the situation.
So everyone's okay if Brian and I do it, we'll just figure out a time when we're both available to do that.
Sure.
And on the 17th, Ed and Josh will go to the city council meeting.
Yes.
And I assume in the audience, some of you might be there.
Yes, I'll be there.
I've got a dumb question. Is there a way to petition the city council to get on their agenda? Or some way that we could do that? Public?
Speaking broadly to the room, one could reach out to anyone on the city council privately, and I believe any member of the city council could choose to agendize something on a future meeting. Just like anybody here at our meeting, anybody on the board could choose to agendize an item.
I think they might need a second.
Oh, okay.
Unlike us, but if you reached out to any city council member, they could bring it up and ask for a second to put it on the agenda.
So just so everyone, for anyone who wasn't there, at that time politely, but I actually specifically asked the city council to place it, the item on their agenda as soon as possible. So, and then I know I previously had spoken to 2 city council members. I didn't speak to more than that because I didn't want to create anything that would be a Brown Act violation. So at the last city council meeting where members of the BMX community spoke, at the conclusion of my comments, I asked them to put it on their agenda as soon as possible. So the request has been made, and of course I made the request again that
I believe we have a schedule thus far. Does any other board member or member of staff have any comments, questions, any clarity on anything? Okay. I would say that concludes this item then, which will take us to item 9C, approval of award of contract for the Arroyo Simi Greenway Phase 4 construction project.
Thank you, Chair and Board. Douglas Duran will present staff's report.
And I will quickly say for anybody leaving at this point, thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you. See you on the 17th.
See you then.
Good evening, Chair Gray, members of the board. I am so thrilled to getting closer to another phase of the Arroyo Simi project. I've been very fortunate to be involved in the previous phases, phase 1 and phase 2 and 3. Phase 1 was completed back in 2014, and phase 2 and 3 were completed in 2017. The next phase, phase 4, is approximately 2 miles, and it will cover from the stretch from Sequoia Avenue on the north side all the way to Tapo Street. We will also be incorporating asphalt on the south side from Tapo Canyon to Tapo Street. This project, phase 4, will have the same profiles as previous phases, which will have decorated entrances, park amenities, signage, and rebuilding or renovating the existing deteriorating asphalt conditions that exist. At its meeting on April 19, Board of the Directors authorized staff to solicit bids. This project was publicly advertised in the Ventura County Star on April of this year, and bids were opened June 6 of this year. There were approximately 8 contractors that received bid packages, and 2 were sealed and received on that June 6th. The apparent lowest bidder, Ardalan Construction Company, has successfully completed many projects with the Park District. They're mainly at the Stratton Museum Park, including the bridge replacements, and most recently the grading and compaction of the restoration of the Prince Colony House. Staff is confident that the Ardalan Construction Company has the ability to successfully complete this project. Based on the bids received, staff is recommending that this project be awarded to Ardenland Construction of Thousand Oaks in California for the amount of $1,038,631.31. Funding for this project has been allocated on the approved budget for fiscal year 2022 and 2023 under the Grant Fund 90 and the Part Dedication Funds Fund 40 in the combined amount of $1,262,000. These funds are derived from $1 million Property 68 grant acquired by the Park District in 2020 from the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, $100,000 in matching funds from the Park District, $100,000 in matching funds from the City of Simi Valley, and $62,000 on in-kind contributions from the Park District. Staff is requesting the following board actions. One, that the award of contract for the project Ardenland Construction Company of Thousand Oaks, California, in the amount of $1,038,631.31. And number two, authorize the district manager to execute an agreement with the awarded firm on behalf of the district to amend the agreement for project contingency in the amount not to exceed $110,000, if any, and if the need arises for extra work or modifications to the project. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any board questions?
If approved tonight, when would it start?
We met with the president of the Ardenland Construction. They presently they're pretty busy because of the school projects that are coming up. I also found that there's an existing event that is happening on August 26th, which is the 13 Lives, I believe. I spoke to the gentleman that kind of organizes that event, Jeff Von Molt, and they are having that event on the 26th, and he confirmed it. So we don't want to intrude into this event, so I believe that we're going to try to postpone or delay this project to start probably after the Labor Day's holiday, which is somewhere in September, first week or so.
And then there's a few entrances where I'd be concerned that mobility devices, which are devices like someone that cannot walk, rides on. We see them sometimes in front of grocery stores. Would the incline and the entrances address that?
We are very limited, especially because of the existing conditions. I believe the main one is probably on Rancho Tapo on the west side. The elevations are pretty steep, and at that point there's hardly that much that we can do because there is the existing conditions of the bridge determine all the existing elevations. So we are going to be addressing the driveway approach on the east side. We're going to be eliminating that curve and be creating a driving approach.
Right. I appreciate we pay attention to that. And then lastly, I plan to support this, but when we get closer, if there's interpretive signs, like about the fish or the birds and stuff like that, I'd like to just look over them with staff briefly before.
Sure.
Just one follow-up. So if it starts in September, what are you looking at roughly as completion?
Typically what we allocated is about 60 days of this project.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other board questions?
Nope. So they'll go along on the north side and from Sequoia to Tapo Canyon, then they'll go up Tapo Canyon and get on the south or down and go on the south side.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. I want to make sure I understood that.
Yes.
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, I noticed that many employees around this area here, they usually use that the street, and they go and hop on the loop on the north side. So I think that by adding that north side, the south side, it will probably increment the usage because it will be basically a loop.
I see. Thank you.
I have no questions. That will take us to public comment. I cannot see any member of the public in the audience, so I will close public comment. Board comments. Ed?
So first of all, thank you for your great work as always. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Second, I know that the beginning of the The Arroyo Greenway improvements go back a number of years, and I want to applaud and thank Elaine and Kate for being part of all that and getting it going. It's just awesome, and it just turned into such a great feature in our community. And then, as I've done before, everybody knows how I love our citizen involvement, and to Stacy Vanderschaft, who approached me about this 2 years ago, and on behalf of walkers and runners and cyclists for letting us know about the need for the improvements at that phase, and kind of jump-starting it and getting it going. Just a great thing. So thank you to all that were involved. It's great for our community, and I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
I think it was first. Could we do roll call, please?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Zenert?
Yes.
Director O'Brien?
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes.
And Chair Gray.
Aye.
The motion carries with unanimous vote.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That will take us to item 9B, discussion direction regarding proposed 2023 fee increases at the Simi Hills and Sinaloa golf courses.
Thank you, Chair and Board. Brian Reed, the district's golf course manager, will provide staff's report.
Evening, Honorable Chair, members of the board. This report has a lot to it, so I'm going to be rather summary in my comments. It's in the packet, so you guys have all had a chance to take a look at it. I'll hit some key items and then pause every once in a while for comments or questions if there are any. So starting out, background, kind of same as always, golf course staff evaluate revenue and utilization on a regular basis, and we make adjustments to fees, or make recommendations to adjust fees to maximize revenues. We solicit feedback from customers and members through formal and informal surveys, and we conduct an analysis of neighboring courses so that we know how the competitive market works. We also participate in regional and national PGA, club manager, and golf course owner groups so that we keep up to speed on trends. The goal is to create maximum net results to cover operating expenses and generate funds for capital improvements, and at the same time not negatively impacting our market share. So annual rounds played. There was a question earlier today about what the percentage of rounds that we have at Simi Hills are residents and non-residents. We don't track that, so I can't give an exact answer. Everybody pays the same price. Residents get advanced reservations, so we don't really specify necessarily who's a resident and who's a non-resident when they check in and pay their fee, because everybody pays the same amount. Anecdotally, if I had to take a stab at it, I'd say 30–40%, maybe as many as 50% are residents, but there's no way for us to really track that. So just that's the answer to that question. There's two charts in here that show our annual rounds played for Simi and Sinaloa, and you can see that the rounds kind of spiked up during 2020 and 2021 and are slightly dipping back down this last year. Any questions or comments on that?
I'm just going to wait till we have that.
Okay. All right. So that's there for your review. The following two charts after that are monthly rounds played. You've seen these charts in previous reports. This year we have a green baseline is 2019, prior to COVID, and then the other three lines are the following 3 years. You can see the 2023 numbers that have started since then. One caveat to this that is important to note, Buenaventura Golf Course was flooded in January and remains closed at this point. It's one of our key competitors. They generally do about 70,000 rounds a year, so all of those players who would normally play Buena are out playing other golf courses, including Simi Hills, on a regular basis. So there's an added level of demand that we're getting right now at Simi Hills that will likely go away once Bueno opens back up. I talked to the pro on Monday. They have been publicly saying January of 24, but they just got their architect started last week, and there's a lot of contaminated soil that was, because there was sewage that was going down the river, so there's a lot of work to be done hauling material off. But he said that they're possibly looking as early as October or November, but January is what they're quoting as far as real. So those are the next two charts, rounds played by month. Next chart is a graph that just displays how our rate increases have been over the last 5 years from 2018 to current. Any questions or comments on that? Okay.
What exactly is a spectator? It's just somebody who's watching the game, right?
Right. If somebody's walking along, following a group out on the golf course, they can walk along for free. If they want to rent a cart, they can rent a cart for that. That spectator fee is what we charge, for someone to rent a cart.
I noticed it jumped it way up, so I just thought.
Yeah, it's gone up.
I do have one question.
Yes.
So is it standard golf practice that both people pay the cart fee if there's two people on the cart?
For the most part, yeah. There are some golf courses that will rent a cart just by the cart. We split it up by the seat because if you're going out and playing golf as a threesome, that third person would otherwise get stuck paying for the whole cart, which is, we find that to be unfair, so we charge just a half cart. So for a threesome to go out and play, they're actually only paying for a cart and a half. So each rider pays, half a cart fee. We do allow customers to pay, that spectator fee comes into play. So if a customer comes out as a threesome and then we have a single joining them, normally it's just kind of like an airline has a right to sell all the seats on the plane. We try to sell all the seats in the carts because we only have enough carts really to support, the play that we have. So if somebody wants to take a private cart and not have somebody sit with them, they can pay that spectator fee and have that extra seat next to them open, and then that single would rent a separate cart. So you'd end up with 3 carts in a foursome.
Because there was that one email inquiring about that.
Yeah, that was
during COVID. We didn't do that.
Right. Well, so the county mandated that during COVID, and so we could only have one person in a cart. Well, there was a caveat if you had dividers in a cart, which was odd. But when that policy went away, when that mandate was removed, we went back to our previous of 2 people in a cart. And there are some people who just want to have their own cart, and so they're happy to pay that additional fee. Some people would like to have their own cart and not pay for it, and we go through this conversation on a somewhat regular basis in the golf shop. Most courses do not allow that for free. It's a revenue opportunity that we, staff kind of takes advantage of because, like I said, we're trying to make a buck if we can. The next chart is a kind of a graphic that displays our rates compared with quality and value. Very simple. Everyone understands the supply demand and quality comparison between golf courses. So you'll see that the higher tier golf courses charge a little bit more. Generally the lower tier golf courses charge a little less. That's the marketplace at work. CME is roughly in the middle, but towards the higher end of the scale. You can compare the value and ratings of the various golf courses that we compete with. So a nicer golf course that charges more is a good value. A nicer golf course that charges less is a great value, and vice versa. If it's a kind of a weak golf course and they charge a lot, it's not as good of a In parentheses, you'll notice underneath Tierra Hada and Robles and Olivas, those numbers in parentheses reflect some of the online specials that courses run and also the membership deals. Tierra Hada, for example, has $105 listed as their rack rate on weekends, but if you purchase their Arcus Prime membership, you play for $82. So it's $89 a month for the membership, and you save $23 every time you play. So if you play once a week, that normal golfer is going to jump right on that membership, because if they play twice a week or 3 times a week, they're going to really save a lot of money. So the effective rate that people will pay are in parentheses, people will put the memberships.
Do you say
89. They have a couple of tiers. They have another tier above that that gives unlimited range balls. But the $89 gives I believe 2 buckets a day maximum. So not only do they get discounts on fees, they also get unlimited range use.
And I have a question about this overall and value scale of 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's based on our review as golf course staff. I've actually visited all the golf courses on this list this year in the last 4 months, and went around the golf course, and there's variances. Some courses are a little bit better, some are a little less. But
that would include things like their bar and their food service.
Yeah, golf carts. Some courses have older fleets. Some have newer. Range balls can be worn out or brand new. Mats, golf shop, restaurant. There's a lot of different level. Tee boxes being level, greens being in good shape. Irrigation systems all come into play. There's a lot of different factors that go into how nice a golf course is. Okay. Now we got to get into the meat and bones here. The detailed rate schedules for proposed alternative 1 includes a no increase to weekday rates and a $2 increase in prime rates. There are rate schedules for both golf courses attached as attachment B at the end of the report. There's also an alternative 2 that you can see there. That would be a little bit more aggressive. Alternative 1 is estimated to generate $70,000 to $100,000 in additional revenue. Alternative 2 could generate $120,000 to $150,000, both assuming that utilization stays the same as it is currently. In addition to presenting the current and proposed alternatives in the chart above, staff, you guys have already read through all of that. Any questions about?
Just as a
where we are so far?
clarifier on the Simi Hills rate schedule, I assume that should be, when you look at the writing card, it's at 47 and then 39. Second line down, should that be 49?
Oh, typo, yes.
You see what I'm saying?
You're looking at weekday senior?
I'm looking at weekday seniors.
Right, you're right, 49, not 39.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't catch that one. Next one is elimination of standing tee times and establishment of a expanded membership program. I did want to add in a little bit of a history. Director Appel requested a little bit of background on how we got where we are at the last board meeting, so I just wanted to give a little bit of a track record of how we got to where we are. Most businesses, golf courses included, have different levels of VIP. Board members get certain perks. That's common knowledge at every business, kind of everywhere. I mean, if you're a regular customer at a restaurant, you're more likely to get the window seat, and that's kind of how the world works. So for many years, I can't even say how long, but that was kind of the case at Simi, as well as most golf courses. Men's club members, like for example, our men's club, was granted a standing block of tee times on Sunday by this board in a previous iteration because they're VIPs and they're regulars and they support the golf course and felt like that was the right thing to do, and that happens. And you know, we booked tournaments in advance for groups, and so there's a many different multifaceted policies at every golf course about who gets to hold tee times in advance, and so it's not really too crazy that that had been going on. Back in previous years, the golf courses weren't as busy as they were during COVID, so it never really was an issue. Not too many people were clamoring over themselves to have the first tee time on Tuesday morning, and so it was kind of became the same people were playing every morning, and they kind of got to know each other. And in the previous policy, before I even got to Simi Hills, reservations were taken 5 days in advance instead of 7 days in advance. So it was hard for some of the players to make tee times because they're already out on the golf course playing. And so they kind of, made deals with the starters. Hey, we're going to be here every Tuesday morning. We're going to play every week. Just put us in. We'll let you know if we're not going to be here. And that kind of just became the thing. There was little, issues with that as, staff moved around, somebody had a day off and they didn't know that they were supposed to put in, Bob's tee time. And, so what I did when I first got there is I kind of nationalized that program. Instead of having each starter individually on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday responsible for putting in, whatever times, we collected all that data and we just started doing it as a service, and we made a deal with the customers. Say, look, we'll go ahead and hold your time for you. And, if you're not going to be here, let us know, cancel it. And then, it all worked out pretty smooth. And, so as time went on, works just fine. We have several different groups to do that. We have senior groups. We have, the high schools who hold tee times. And, there's all kinds of people who do that and participate in that. And we put their times in, especially with tournaments and high school tournaments and senior tournaments and the ladies club, and all of these groups take, we work with each one of them to, provide that extra level of service to our valued customers who, wouldn't likely be able to get a block of times together if we did not do that. So it's a service that most golf courses provide. And it got really busy during COVID, and there was, more of a clamor for tee times, and that's how this became, a little bit of an issue. So that's the kind of the history of how we got where we are.
Okay, I have a question. If we were to implement a premium membership, would we allow those members to have a standing tee time? Or, I mean, we're thinking of getting rid of it, the standing tee time.
Right.
I mean, if it worked. It didn't work during COVID, but if the rounds start to drop off now that COVID is done, is it worthwhile to keep a standing tee time arrangement in some form? Is I guess my question.
Well, what we've been wanting to do for a while, and we proposed this a little while back, was we've been wanting to get rid of this standing tee time program and replace it with a membership or an advanced reservation policy that allowed each of the golfers to book advanced tee times for a fee. And that way we can kind of take it off our plate and put it back on their plate, give them a little bit of an advantage that they could purchase, but then also the public has the same ability to purchase that. So it kind of levels the playing field for everyone, because we didn't really like the idea that some people were able to be on this list and other people weren't. And during COVID, it got really busy, so we had a few people who were asking to get onto this list, and we could have literally sold out our entire tee sheet in advance if we expanded that list with all the requests that we had. And we resisted that. We stayed, we held the line, but it got to a point where it's pretty obvious that we needed to just sundown this program and level that that playing field. So that's kind of the idea. Initially, we were going to have it be an ability to book tee times online up to 30 days in advance for a $10 reservation fee. A lot of golf courses do that. Coyote Hills, Sandpiper, Rustic Canyon just started a program where they do that. A lot of golf courses see this as a service that they can make a little extra money on, which is how we viewed it. We've come to realize that a little bit more efficient way of doing it would be with a membership program. So our normal Players Club that we sell is $59. We would sell an upgraded version of that for $199 and give those members an advantage. And we would give residents an advantage over non-residents, 14 days for residents, 10 days for non-residents. So we're still playing favorites, it's just a matter of who we play favorites with, but we think that's appropriate.
The $199, is that per month or per year?
That's an annual membership.
Annual.
So if I have that annual fee, I can get a guaranteed start time every week?
No, you wouldn't. It wouldn't be guaranteed. You still have to go online and book your own reservation. But so standard reservations would be 7 days for non-residents, 8 days for residents, and then for premium members, if you buy the membership, you can book 10 days or 14 days. So the incentive would be there for, if someone wanted to have a better crack at getting the preferred times that they want, they could pay they could join the membership and they'd have a little bit of a jump on. And in our goal, hopefully, a lot of people will buy the membership and we'll make a little bit of money on it. And people will be able to go online and compete with each other and make their tee times, and that's fine. At least it's a level playing field. So that's what we have proposed. And I assume there'll be some more questions about that after. I'll go ahead and finish up. Another idea for additional revenues that we want to install would be an added amenity. There's a system called Top Tracer. It's basically a camera system that we would install on the driving range, and you can use that to track all your shots. If you watch golf on TV, you see they have little tracers that, so it basically does that function, and it stores all of it. You create an account, and it'll store all your data. And a lot of players like that because it helps them improve their golf game, but you can also play games with each other. You can have competitions, you can set up leagues. There's a lot of different options that we can do. We could charge that by the day, by the month. We could add it to a membership product at some point if we wanted to, but there's a lot of golf courses have installed that and done really well with it. So that would be something that we would like to install and use that because we think we can generate some revenue off of that as well. Alternatives for discussion. Alternative 1, direct staff to implement alternative 1 as proposed. Alternative 2, direct staff to keep the rates the same as current, or alternative 4 would be to provide staff with some other direction. Considering the recent rate increases at CME and the comparative rates of local market courses and the post-COVID trend of declining utilization and rounds played, staff is concerned that further increases of rates may
price ourselves out of the market if that would be.
Well, yeah, if demand is declining and we increase our rates at the same time, it may accelerate that decline.
Yeah. I'm going to have a number of questions, but I'm going to ask one right here.
Sure.
You've expressed that same concern every year for the past 5 years, right?
Well, the big anomaly in the last 4 years is COVID, which threw all of the standard metrics out of.
But the increased rates worked prior to COVID, and you were concerned about them before that. Is that right?
Well, actually, if you look at our historical revenues, if you look back on that annual round chart, our rounds were declining considerably on a pretty standard
our
trajectory.
revenues were increasing.
Not by much. Not as much as not as much as we were increasing rates.
But the revenues were increasing.
So we were increasing rates, but revenues were staying flat or but not by the same amount that we proposed. And then there's some fiscal impacts there that you guys can look at. And with that, I think I'll just go ahead and open it up for questions, comments. Sure.
Director Bender. All right. Apologies.
I'm going to say Director Avila, who's looking at me.
No,
when
go
I
ahead,
said-
go ahead. I'm good.
Okay. Apologies.
I want to start off by thanking you for a more detailed report, and following, you could sense that the board would like to increase revenues when possible. So I see that you've found some ways to do that, including with the top tracer technology.
Well, to be specific, I mean, increasing fees or increasing revenue, those are two different things.
Oh, I apologize. You got the message that we'd like to increase revenues when possible, and there's multiple ways to do that. But one of the examples of that is the top tracer technology, bring that in. Another example of that is the membership fee. The reason I like the membership program is it's transparent. So no one likes that feeling of, oh, somebody else knows the guy that does the thing, versus, oh, anyone could pay for that membership. So I think that membership is a really good idea, and I think it brings in more revenue. And I think I'm going to be optimistic. I see the numbers in there, but I think it's going to be popular. And the good thing is someone could ask, hey, how do I get in that? You can hand them a flyer and say, sign up right now. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate the creative events like the Cornhole League coming in, bringing more people to an amenity that we have. The questions I have is for the percentage of filled tee times. Is there a place where you would say the greatest weakness would be? Like if we increased fees, you'd be the most concerned or the least concerned? In my mind, if we're selling out 100% at a particular place, I would think that'd be the least concern if you raised it. But if you already had a place that's weak and you're only selling 50 or 60%, as a board member, I wouldn't want to increase something that's already not selling.
Right. Typically, the prime times, before noon, are the most highly utilized. But there's a little bit of give back. Depends on what everybody else in the market is doing. If we're at 75 right now, prime time. If we go to Tierra Hada, for example, is 82 if you buy the membership. So if we go to 77 or 79, we're closing that gap. And where we do 80,000 rounds and they're doing 68, if they have availability on weekend mornings and we don't, the closer we are together, the more likely that we'll lose some of that play. There's one other thing I wanted to mention that I didn't get a chance to in the monthly rounds chart. You may have noticed the comment I put in about in October last year when we changed our tee time spacing. So for years and years and years, the golf course was at 8-minute intervals, and then during COVID we had to go to 10-minute interval. Well, the county didn't specify 10 minutes; they just said we had to space out tee times. Everybody understood that to be 10 minutes, and that's what everybody did. All the golf courses. Once that guidance was retracted and we got our new cart fleet in to support our traditional 8 or 9 minute interval, we did that back in October. So if you look at that monthly chart, you'll see a little bump up in play back in October that's kind of held through. Many of the other golf courses are still at 10 minutes. We made the choice to go back to 8 and 9 minute intervals, which effectively adds about 4 tee times per prime time. If you're at 10-minute tee times, you get 9 tee times in a 90-minute period. If you go to 9 minute, you get 10 tee times. So you get an extra tee time.
Have you got much pushback on the players on that?
There's always a little bit of rub. It's the more players you put out on the course, the more crowded it is. The slower pace of play is going to be typically. People are kind of used to that at city courses. It's a standard feature. The better value the golf course is, the more crowded they are typically, and the worse pace of play is. That's one of the selling points of a country club membership, is that they're less crowded and it's more of a high-end experience where you don't have to wait all the time. But I just wanted to make the point that we went ahead and did that and bumped up our revenue a little bit back in October, November, and that's held all the way through. So that's one aspect of adding revenue.
Can I ask the question about resident versus non-resident? One of the reasons was I've seen some park districts offer different prices, but also I just wanted to know that information. And the fact that you said it was an estimate, but the fact that so many people are coming here to play, that's a compliment towards your course and your team. I was surprised by the large number to that, and I'm happy to hear that. And then my last question for now is dynamic pricing that some courses use, where the fee as you try to sign up for a tea time might change based off of demand. Is that something you see bringing to us in the future?
We've actually proposed it a few times to the golf committee. We've talked about it a few times over the years. It has its downsides. If you're at 8 o'clock and you pay one price, and then 8:09 pays a different price, and you're standing out on the first tee talking about it, it can create a little bit of friction. I've talked to other golf course managers about it who use dynamic pricing. At similar golf courses, they say it can be a couple $100,000 a year that you can squeeze out of your tee sheet. You can put some parameters on it. Basically the price floats with demand. So if you're historically, utilized at 100% during a certain time period, say from 8 to 9 on Saturday morning, the computer would automatically bump up those prices and sell those tee times for over your rack rate. And if your utilization is lower, it would reduce those prices until somebody booked it. Airlines, hotels, do the exact same thing all the time to pretty good effect. It's like it's always busy, always more expensive to fly during the holidays. Higher demand, that's the way it works.
Well, I do appreciate supply and demand, and I'm open to dynamic pricing in the future. I know it's not part of this report.
Right. Yeah. The hesitance has been in the past, and the board could always direct us differently. Is that we have posted rates, and we've wanted to be in a position where we honor the rates that we post. We haven't wanted to allow those to float around, because if we had dynamic pricing, we'd have to kind of post a range of rates, or just not post a standard rate sheet at all and let it float, and that's produced a little discomfort in previous conversations at the golf course.
Well, if you see wisdom bringing it to us, I'll be open to the argument for it.
Any other questions?
I have a couple of,
I apologize.
yeah. I have a question about the top tracer. How much does that cost to install? I know you said it's cheap and it's great.
Yeah, it's about a little less than $3,000 a month on a lease, so it's about $35,000 a year is what we would pay for the system. Most of the golf courses around have, produced gigantic returns on the system. When I was at the PGA show this year, and I talked to the director of golf at Harding Park up in San Francisco. They had a U.S. Open there, or PGA Championship, not a few years ago. They're a park and rec facility just like we are, and they were doing about $350,000 a year on their driving range. They installed Top Tracer, and they doubled their range business. Wow! And so for the $35,000 that they spent on the system, I mean, it was a gigantic return. They just raised all their prices across the board, and because of the coolness of the system and the demand that people wanted to use the system, they were able to get away with it. They broke a few eggs on the way. Some of the regulars who like to hit balls before they go out and play, so they have like a senior bucket for $5 still, but they went from $13 for a large bucket to $20, and they have a line around the corner. So there's a number of golf courses that have been very creative with that. If you think of Top Golf, you have the hitting bays and the screens that track your shots and all that. There's golf courses that have done that. They've installed hitting bays with screens and make them reservable, and they get $20-25 an hour for reserve. And so there's a lot of additional revenue that's out there that people like, and so it has a lot of potential.
I promise I will call on you next, but a follow-up to that exact question. Is the technology changing frequently enough that it is only worth leasing versus purchasing?
I don't know that the company offers a purchase. They do a lease. It's a 3-year lease. I think they probably,
subscription.
It's a camera system, so it's not like it's really going to change a lot. Okay. But maybe the software changes enough that they feel like they need to update it every so often.
Okay.
their shots on the range. So basically the way it works, it's a camera array
On the
that
range, not
is-
just not on the pump.
yeah, on the driving range.
Okay.
And they they download an app, and we would charge them for that app, for the daily use. So the QR code, they would scan in the shop when they bought their bucket. They'd go up there, I'm install one, and you would tell the computer that, you tell the app that you're installing one. So it would, track every shot that's hit from stall
Like you
one while you're
sliced
there.
it to the right.
Yeah, and so hook, draw, whatever, and they can catalog all that data, and they can keep track of their distances and their accuracy, and there would be people who would use it on a daily basis. So they would come in every day and, pay that whatever, $5, $10 that we charge, so that's immediately how we would monetize it. But we could add unlimited use to a membership add-on, we could have another tier to our Players Club. There's a lot of options to that.
Brian, if all the board members and Dan Pernick played with the Top Chaser program, would that be a part of the public record?
There's so many Brians, I wasn't sure. No. Director Coppola.
So I want to just follow up a little bit on something I believe it was Kate was asking you earlier. On the ratings that you gave for the different golf courses, this is strictly based on your observations. This is a one man's opinion thing as opposed to like passing out forms and having golfers fill them out. Is that right?
Yeah. I call it an educated opinion.
So in that regard, would it surprise you, just anecdotally speaking to golfers myself, if I told you that by far the biggest complaint about our golf course, Simi Hills, is getting tee times?
Well, I would actually disagree with that because I talk to 300 golfers a day. And far and away the biggest complaint we get is pace of play.
That is actually the number 2 one I got, but I'm okay flip-flopping.
Yeah, I'm
Those
sure
would be the top 2.
Yeah, I'm sure I talked to a lot more golfers.
Right, okay, that's fine. But those would probably be the top 2. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. So if those are the top 2, the fact of difficulty getting tee times and pace of play, which the whole pace of play thing has to do with less gap between the tee times, which means more golfers out there.
Yeah.
When you combine those 2 things, what does that tell you about supply and demand and where we can go with our rates if people are having a difficult time getting tee times, and that's even when you consider the fact that there's more tee times out there now?
Well, the difficulty difficulty getting the tee time is looking back a little bit over the last couple of years. Currently, it's not as hard. I'm just saying this from the front row seat where I talk to 50 golfers a day. We don't get that complaint as much anymore. We do get a lot of pace of play complaints. Occasionally, I'll get complaints, but we have that's gone down quite a bit. Well, I won't disagree with that.
But again, having been said, I think the question becomes, what does that tell you about supply and demand and what we can do with our rates when tee times are tough to get and we have an increased number of tee times and the spots are still filling up?
Well, and as you can see in the annual chart, we went from 92,000 rounds in 2021 to 80,000 rounds last year, trending towards 75 or 78 this year. But part of the big reason for that, Ed, is that the fact that Buenaventura is still closed.
Well,
that's dumping 70,000 rounds a year out into the marketplace, and so we're absorbing some of that. So it's a little bit of a mirage. You may think that we have the higher demand, but as soon as Buena opens back up, we stand to lose.
But the demand has consistently been there for the prime tee times. And, on weekends and during the weekdays, the difficulty getting the prime tee times. That demand has been consistent, right?
It has always been the case.
Yeah, always. And that's really what we're trying to talk about most here anyway. So, let's talk about the favoritism for particular golfers. Now, my understanding, well, let me ask Dan. Let me ask you a question. I just want to make sure I understand this. In terms of certain golfers getting favoritism in terms of tee times, I just want to confirm that first came to your attention when we got that email and a couple calls earlier this year, correct?
Correct.
All right. So, I guess my question is, well, I actually have a different question. How did we determine who was going to get the favorable tee times? What was the criteria for that?
Well, if you go back a few years before COVID, when we're doing in the range of 70 or 72,000 or 68,000 rounds, the demand isn't really there. There's not. I mean, Jerry Hayes plays every. Well, I'm trying to answer it. Jerry Hayes plays every Tuesday morning, and so he's been playing every Tuesday morning for 25 years. Mark Luker, who you know, plays every Saturday morning. He's second tee time out every Saturday morning. He's been doing that at least since I've been there. I know Mark well, and that's kind of the routine. They make their times. They always book the same times. That's how that developed.
So the criteria was basically whatever you or some other employees decided this person's going to get this tee time.
Well, the golfers themselves actually generate that pattern. I mean, they call and they book their tee time, and there's only so many people who like to play early in the morning, and they all know that, and they want to play first out, on Saturday morning. So they establish a trend over a number of years, and we kind of it kind of became just a pattern over time that okay, these guys are your typical Wednesday morning people. They're your normal Saturday morning, and every golf course. I mean, and this is I try to elaborate on this for those who don't play golf in the room. Every golf course is like this. I mean, every golf course has your rabbit group that goes out first out on every day of the week, and your second group and your third group, and they develop a pecking order amongst themselves because who plays faster.
You say every golf course. You understand we're a public golf course. We're a park district that belongs to the.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, and this, I mean, I've worked at 8 different golf courses, so I say that from an objective, point of view that I have seen this at other golf courses.
Okay, so there was no specific criteria. It's basically I've known this guy and he likes this tee time, so he gets the tee time.
Yeah, I mean that people develop a half pattern.
Do you think that's fair?
Do I think it's fair?
Yeah.
No, that's why I actually proposed that we end it.
And you proposed that we end it. You didn't propose that 2 years ago in the middle of COVID, or 3 years ago. You proposed it now when there was a complaint that specifically came to our board, right?
Actually, I wrote this up in my revenue generation ideas 2 years ago, and again last year as an opportunity. The idea of sundowning this program and replacing it with a membership-based or an advanced tee time-based system. I've been working on this for a couple of years.
My understanding is it didn't get to be an issue until COVID, when there was an uptick in.
Correct. It was not an issue. Nobody was complaining about it, and that's the reason why you guys were not aware of it, because
but you
never
didn't
came
change
up with
it during COVID when it became an issue.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
But you didn't change it during COVID when it became an issue.
No, we actually proposed to change it, and that idea got floated to a few of you, and that decision got put off from January to June for.
No, I'm talking about during COVID.
Yeah, we've been trying to get rid of it for a while.
Well, what have you done to try to get rid of it?
I made a proposal that we get rid of it and replace it with a reservation fee system, and that.
Just so kind of look, when did you make that proposal? Because Dan said he just first became aware of this problem earlier this year.
I know it was floated to, I believe, 2 or 3 You want to speak to that?
Yeah, I became a bit aware of it when we got that email in January or February or whatever that is.
Okay.
Whatever the
Right. So COVID was 2020 and into 2021. So you weren't aware of any proposal or anything or any problem until earlier this year, right, Dan?
Not that I can recall. I don't recall Brian has brought it up with the golf committee over the last couple of years.
Okay. And so let me just ask you this, because I actually like the idea of the expanded membership program. Do you have any feel among the golfers that you speak with as far as how popular it's going to be, or how many people are going to be interested in the program?
I'm going to guess all of the people who currently are on the standing tee time list will jump on the membership program so that they can still have priority access to tee times. That is a revenue opportunity that a lot of golf courses have, taken advantage of. So I'm going to guess 100% of them. Quite a few others will probably do the same thing because it is hard to get a tee time around LA. There's a lot of golfers and not that many golf courses, and it is difficult, especially prime time. So I think there'll be a fairly good market for it. I estimated in the report it could be as much as $50,000 in revenue. I don't know if that is going to happen or not, but I think a lot of people will buy the membership.
Right, those are my questions. I'll have comments.
Any other board questions at this time? Okay.
I apologize, one more.
Yes, go ahead.
I believe you said Bueno was closed from flooding.
Yes.
Do you know when that might be open back up?
No, they haven't really come up with a firm date yet. They've been advertising January next year. When I talked to Jeff last Monday, he said that they were possibly as soon as October, but that's kind of depends on some construction that still needs to happen.
I haven't seen construction run ahead of schedule too often, so.
Yeah, they're waiting for FEMA money, which takes some doing. We've been through that with it at CME with a FEMA project, and so it's kind of hard to really predict how fast that will move. But they did get their architect on the ground last week, and so they are making strides towards doing the repairs and getting back open. So they're working on it.
Can I assume, based off one of these attachments, that if I were to take up the hobby of golf, you would not recommend Camarillo Golf Course?
It's a little scruffy right now. It's pretty bad.
I just had to know because I saw a lot of ones.
And that actually might work in our favor at some point. The guy who owns it wants to shut it down and build houses. The city won't let him. You might have heard of this. The latest proposal, he wants to shorten the golf course to a 12-hole golf course, build homes on the edges, and then sell it and exit and make a little money and leave. But he's been letting the golf course go and not doing any of the repairs. He's not doing any of the capital. So it's getting worse and worse and worse as a strategy to dwindle revenue down to a point where it's easier to get that.
Pulling in Oakland athletics. Did you have an additional question?
I'm actually glad you made that comment, asked that question. I do have a follow-up. So in looking at the rankings of the golf courses you had here, just as an example on Los Robles, would it surprise you that if some people, some golfers actually thought Simi Hills was a more desirable golf course?
No, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Because I know in this analysis you have it above Simi Hills, but that's not necessarily a universal opinion, right?
No, they have a better shop and a better restaurant than we do. Turf conditions are generally better. They have a new irrigation system. They spent about $12 million renovating the golf course 10 years ago. So, I mean.
But it's not, again, this is an opinion you give. It's certainly not shared by all golfers.
No, it's an average. I talked to, I've played Los Robles twice this year. I don't know if you've been over there. around the golf course.
I don't golf. I've spoken to
Yeah.
other golfers who golf, and I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, I've played it twice this year, and our men's club plays 2 tournaments a year there. I talked to all those guys. I have a fairly broad, based opinion, across a number of different golfers who play there on a regular basis.
They have a good restaurant though, still.
Yeah, the restaurant's pretty good. They have a really nice wedding facility. The golf shop is about 5 times the size of ours. They have a couple of really good programs. Pace of play is usually pretty good. The golf course, the greens are nice. I mean, I've played it, it's good.
Any other board questions at this time? Okay. I do not believe the public comment has altered since the last item. I don't see anybody on Zoom, in person, so we'll keep moving.
Josh, are you saying nobody's joined the meeting at 9:30?
I'm finding this report fascinating. Maybe somebody would join it. That will take us to board comment. I believe Director Avila has stated he has comments at the ready.
Right, I do. So first of all, I'm gonna ad lib one here that I didn't take notes on ahead of time. I think that Director Dennard's idea of moving toward dynamic pricing in the future is outstanding, and I say it really for 3 reasons. One, it has become commonplace. People are used to it. It's not something that in this day and age becomes a shock. As long as they're aware that it's out there, it's acceptable to them. A second reason is, again, it comes back to it would solve the supply demand issue. It would take away any of the ambiguity about, should we raise this rate or should we raise that rate? And the third reason is, again, it would go to the whole fairness issue in terms of tee times and all of that. So I think going forward in future years, I think that's an excellent idea, and I think we should aggressively look into that. So I want to applaud Director Dennard for bringing that up. I wish you would have mentioned this to me some other time so I could have been the hero who brought this up, but I think that's an excellent idea.
I said I was open to it, so I'll listen to the pro and con at a future time.
Right. Well, this is comments, so now I can give my actual opinion. So I do know there's some negatives to it, but I think the positives far outweigh the negatives, especially with the issues that we've been facing in terms of where to price the golf. I think it wouldn't solve all of the problems, but it would solve most of the problems, and I think that's a great idea going forward. So I'm going to make this comment, these comments. I think the favoritism for regulars policy was inappropriate. I think it was unequal and unfair. I will say this. I think the silver lining to the whole thing is while the ideal thing is to never have any complaints, in looking at this objectively, the overall number of complaints in the scheme of things was probably not great, which doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it acceptable, but I think that's that's at least one calming aspect of the whole thing, but that's the extent in terms of how many people even knew it was going on, because which is the other concern, because the problem with getting tee times really goes to 2 things. One, it goes to the supply and demand issue, and the other part of it is that it goes to some people may not even be aware that other people were getting favorable treatment. So it is concerning. I don't really think it ever should have taken place. It should have ended once we found out about it, but we absolutely just have to end it immediately. But now we get into the bigger picture, which is what to do with the rates. And I think a lot of the questions have answered themselves. Obviously, there's not as many people golfing as at the height of the pandemic. We knew that was going to happen, and we expected that. But there's still by far more people golfing now than there were in 2019, the last pre-pandemic year. So golf has still gone up, and to the extent there may be some gaps where maybe there isn't a golfer out there, those aren't in the prime time areas, which is really where my concern is, that we're pricing this correctly in prime time. I'm concerned, one, because I don't want us missing out on revenue, and number two, because I want the fairness going to who gets those slots. And there's no better way to do that but to apply the principles of supply and demand. And so the fact of the matter remains that on weekends and during what we call the 18-hole golfing segment on weekdays, people are having a tough time getting tee times. Golf is being played, and we could even get more golfers out there if we had the capacity to do so. And that's the way you determine whether or not you can or even should raise rates or not. And those conditions continue to exist. And so it really solves two purposes. One, it increases our revenue to increase those rates, and two, it helps to solve the fairness issue. And for that reason, I do like the recommendation of the membership program, and I applaud you for that. I think that's an excellent idea. In looking at that, when I look at the chart on the rates, I'll make this comment. As to alternative number 2, my preference in an ideal world is for alternative number 2, and I'm not proposing this, but I will make this comment. Even with the membership status, given what the supply-demand issue is, I think we could actually go well above the $62 plus the $17 for cart rate during the prime hours on the weekend. I'm not going to propose that because I do give some deference to some of the comments that you made and some of your concerns, but I can almost guarantee you that supply and demand would allow for a higher rate than even alternative 2 of the $62 to play around. So what I would be in favor of is alternative 2, as it's proposed here for weekends and holidays, and alternative 2 for the 18-hole rate on weekdays, because I believe clearly supply and demand with the staggered tee times the way they are right now, with people having difficulty getting those tee times, can clearly support those increases. Where I would hold back, because I don't want to see the rates increased for seniors. I think that is one great thing we offer, is a better rate for seniors, and then maybe even some of the golfers who find it more affordable on weekdays to golf, like in the early twilight hours. I wouldn't want to see going to alternate 2 on those. So what I propose is that we go with alternate 2 for weekends and holidays, and alternative 2 for the 18-hole rate on weekdays, and that we go with alternative 1 for those other weekday rates. I think that would accomplish the purpose. So my motion is going to be, and then of course I do like the membership program and the other things that you've proposed. So my motion is going to be basically adjusting that second option to include alternative 2, as I discussed, for the weekends and holidays and for the 18-hole rate on weekdays, but then to go with alternative 1 for the other rates. So that's my motion.
Have you actually made the motion?
I made the motion.
Oh.
We haven't had board comments yet.
I made the motion.
My gut level reaction actually was to keep the rates the way they were because I'm concerned about losing market share. It looks like we're in the middle, but we're creeping up toward the top, and we have raised our rates a lot over the past 5 years. However, I could be talked out of that with good arguments. That's just a gut level reaction. Also, you say tomato, I say tomato. You call it favoritism, I call it rewarding loyal customers. So, I mean, I can see an argument for keeping the standing tea times, but I think we've gotten around that with adding the premium membership. So I'm good with that. And the top tracer, that sounds like a good moneymaker, so let's go for it. Okay, that's my only comment.
Vice Chair Freeman, did you have any comments?
Yes. When I look at the rate adjustment history, we've been pretty aggressive. On the weekends, it's 29% over 5 years. That could be close to 6% a year. We've brought ourselves up to what I think is a competitive level. And when I look at all of the increases, for instance, on Twilight and Sunset, it's 50%. I know that I'm very grateful that we have the management we have out there, and I know that he's sensitive to all the trends and he deals with, if you think of 70,000 rounds, that's a lot of people coming in and out of there every day, and a lot of comments and probably a lot of complaints and a lot of positives and a lot of negatives, but I really appreciate you being there because I think you have a handle on everything. I think that the peak hour times are the ones where you get into not enough time. I mean, it's a peak hour thing when people want to get out early and play, be done by noon or whatever. So I really am concerned about it, but I prefer alternative 1. I think it's fair to everybody. It's a slight increase. It helps the district. It'll help with the increase in costs for the sprinkler system, which is desperately needed. And so I just look at our history, I look at the play, and I look at what we've raised it out over the last 5 years. And I think we've been aggressive, and I don't think it's hurt us. I don't want to put us in a position of getting hurt by increasing it too greatly.
Can I just clarify one thing, Josh, so that we're all on the same page here?
One moment. Are your comments concluded?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to clarify one thing so we're all on the same page here. For both the proposal that I made, the motion that I made, I just want to clarify that the only thing that would be different in my motion on weekdays would be the prime rate, and that would be the 18-hole rate would be going from $40 to $42. Under my motion, all of the other rates on weekdays would be under alternative 1, and on the weekends, again, it's really the prime hours that are part of my motion. In alternative 2, where I'm suggesting we raise those rates, everything in my motion and from, I just want to be clear on this, everything from, even on weekends, late twilight, super twilight, sunset, early bird back 9, all of those would be remaining the same. So it's only, just so it's clear on my motion, it's only those prime rates that I'm suggesting that go up. Just so there's clarity on it.
Can I get a little bit more clarification on that? When you say the 18-hole rate on weekdays, which is the $40 rate currently, or well, so that would be, you're proposing to go from 40 to 42 on weekdays, all
Right.
two. Okay, that's for the 18-hole rate. Okay, and then you're talking about the prime rate going from 58 to 62.
Right.
Are you also talking about the 18-hole rate, which is from 10 o'clock to
Right.
2 o'clock?
I'm talking about on the weekends and holidays going with what's an alternative to, because that's when people are playing golf a lot and trying to get tee times, and to go on alternative 2 with the 18-hole rate, because that's when people are wanting to play and having trouble getting tee times.
Understand. Yeah, you just said prime, you didn't mention the 18-hole rate on weekends, so I just wanted to clarify that you meant both of those.
Yeah, so, right. But so those are the times when people are having
Agreed.
times when people are going. That's why I'm proposing alternative 2 for those, but alternative 1 for the other ones. So it doesn't change the senior rate on weekdays. It doesn't change the early twilight rate on weekdays. It doesn't change the twilight rate on weekdays. And it doesn't change the late twilight, super twilight, sunset, or early bird back 9 rates either on weekdays or weekends.
Yeah.
I think we're doing it the wrong way and we're missing out if we don't do that.
I asked them to pull up the chart.
Director Denner, did you have any comments?
The chart's getting pulled up. Brian, how does this impact youth sports, the new membership program? Like with each team to block in their time when they need to buy the membership program?
No, so every golf course books tournaments up to a year in advance. Police Foundation, everybody books a year in advance. High schools book several months in advance as soon as they have their calendars. We're talking about regular reservations, which would be only 1 week or 2 weeks. All of our regular groups, our women's club, our men's club, all of those groups all book well in advance of that. This wouldn't impact any of the standing groups.
And when they those standing groups book, they're not listed on here. That's a different programming fee, correct?
Right, that's operational. That's not something the board weighs in on.
And then I do see the new membership program is an increase in the fee, de facto increase, because if someone plays every Tuesday, as you mentioned, at 8 o'clock, and they've signed up for the new almost $200 membership fee, they're bringing in $200 more, but that's causing each round of theirs to go up. So whatever choice we make, we're increasing some of their fees at least slightly.
Right, in addition to whatever fee increase that we would be, most of the standing tee times on weekdays are seniors, so if I understand right, we're not talking about increasing the senior rate more than, that would just be a $2 increase on seniors. So that added reservation fee would be some fraction of a dollar more per round based on how often they play.
And you understand, I'm not suggesting to even raise the senior rate at all. That was one of the ones I had under alternative.
Oh, alt 1 is a $2 increase on seniors.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see.
So yeah, you did.
I see that. I see
make that motion.
Okay, you're right. I see that. Okay, I didn't see this. I looked at the numbers. You're right.
I just want to be clear on your motion. You're saying you're going with alternate 2 only for weekend prime time and everything else alternate 1?
Alternate 2 for alternative 2 for weekends and holidays, the way it's described.
Prime time.
Prime, right?
Prime, 18 holes, early twilight and twilight would be increased. And then on weekdays, alternative 2 only for the 18-hole rate, but alternative 1 for all the others. So I'm saying alternative 2 for weekends and holidays, and alternative 2 for 18 holes on weekdays, but alternative 1 for the remainder of the weekday rates. And I would actually be okay with, to be honest with you, I could even amend it. I would be comfortable on the senior one, not even increasing that at all. Not even alternative 1, but not even increasing the senior.
Increasing which?
Not increasing senior at all, so not even going with alternative 1, but just leaving it at 20. I'd be comfortable with that.
that's actually probably our biggest opportunity. I mean, our senior prices
Is
are
it?
fairly
Okay.
undervalued. That's why I recommended
So
it.
then I'll stick with my original motion.
That's why I recommended it.
I'll stick with my original motion.
So just to be clear, so everybody's clear, I got my pointer up here. So on the weekday 18-hole rate, you're saying go with alternative 2.
Correct.
And then you're saying for the rest of the rates on weekdays, go with alternative 1.
Correct.
And then on the weekends and holidays, you're saying go with alternative 2 for
Correct.
the prime and the 18 holes?
No, go with alternative 2, period.
For all of
Right,
the weekend
yes.
and holidays?
Right. What I was pointing out, I was saying go with all alternative 2 for weekends and holidays. What I was pointing out is that if you look, even at alternative 2, from late twilight all the way down to early bird back 9, it doesn't, even under alternative 2, the rates stay the same.
Got it, we're
So
not running
I'm
any,
saying-
I see what you're saying.
Right,
Okay.
weekends and holidays, I'm saying go with alternative 2, and 18 holes on weekdays go with alternative 2, and then the rest of the weekday rates.
Does everybody understand that?
Can I get clarification on one point? For seniors, would you go up to alternative 1 or alternative 2? Because one's at 30, one's at 32.
Just alternative 1.
Okay.
I'm saying the only thing on weekdays I would do with alternative 2 is the 18 holes. Everything else.
Probably live with that.
Do anything with the junior rates or leave them the same? The board directed $1 for juniors last summer.
I don't even see that in here.
It's not on there. We have to pay 50% discount, regular standing discount after 12 o'clock for juniors, 25% for young adults, but the board authorized that $1 FCGA card last year, Monday through Friday.
I haven't even considered that because I never saw that in.
Yeah, it's not on there. It's a.
I'm not asking for any change.
Yeah, I would look to maintain that too in any vote.
Okay.
So, do you think this will have an impact on the play if we went with Director Evelyn's approach?
In the short term, no. It'll generate additional revenue. When it opens back up and demand will drop off, that's going to happen. It'll be interesting to see what happens with demand at that point. My concern is it's a little bit more difficult to unring that bell. If we go too far and we lose customers, it's very difficult to reacquire them. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult to reacquire them than it is to keep them. So if we push too hard and then golfers have an option and exercise it, that won't show up until you're looking at it in the rearview mirror. And just my feel from being, from doing this for 30 years, is like if we get up to 79 on weekends, that's awful close to some golf courses that are better than we are. And it's a big difference between some of the LA city courses in the valley. I mean, you go to Griffith Park, you go to play Wilson or Harding, Encino, any of those golf courses, I mean, their quality is just as good, if not better than us, and they're quite a bit less expensive. I feel like that may be something that you'll be looking at next year. I mean, rounds will, and you may not even see it yet next year because, the look back, I mean, you're looking back at, 2022 rounds right now. You're not looking at current trends. You don't see the tee sheets like I do. So, you're a little bit disadvantaged because you don't have up-to-date current, look at what's going on with the business. I mean, that I have on a daily basis. But, that would be my concern.
These are the same comments we hear every year, and there hasn't been a drop-off. What there has been is a continuing complaint, not in those prime areas, not the ones that I'm suggesting we go with alternative 2. There's been concern about not being able to get tee times, about pace of play. All of that is telling you where supply and demand is during those times. The times where you may get hit a little are the other ones that aren't as popular, but we're not even raising rates at all there at a time where golf is booming. It just doesn't make sense. And I mean, Dan and I talked about this. If you absolutely had to, you could unring the bell. I mean, I mean, we're not going too far is the bottom line. But if by some minuscule chance something happened and we were, then you reduce the prices at that point, and you will get the players back. But it's not going to come to that.
I would rather have the problem of having not enough tea times than having the problem of charging more than we should. And it's just a basic philosophy, but I'd really rather have more people playing and having difficulty with tea time than.
Right, we have this conversation on a regular basis. That's right. The more people that are going through there, the more burgers you sell, the more sleeves of balls, the more range buckets. All those ancillary revenue streams all benefit from having higher volume. So as we go higher in price, and eventually we'll have lower volume because that's just the nature of things. The hope is that you make more money.
Happened.
Well, it was happening before COVID. You're just not looking back far enough. If you look back farther at the ground trend, it was happening.
It hasn't happened.
But I'm a little concerned about our economy and going forward. We're kind of contributing to inflation here. So.
May I ask you a question, Director Freeman? If you're concerned about the economy and going forward, why have you pushed for 6% as opposed to 3% increases for after-school clubs and youth sports, but you're so reluctant as far as golf, which is a discretionary event? You don't seem to be concerned about the economy in those cases.
There was a distinct difference. We make money at the golf course. We were not covering our costs at the other programs. So in this case, with the golf course, we don't have that problem. We're very lucky that we don't have that problem. So I don't see in pushing it, because we're out making a profit. And it's very good for the district the way it is. And I'd rather have the problem of tea time.
I'm going to make some quick remarks. I do also want to chime in that I approve of eliminating the standing tea times. I am very grateful. It feels very much like you found a win-win in terms of maintaining, I think, the integrity of a public course, of allowing everybody the potential access to book tea times, while also hopefully holding on to long-standing golfers who will stay with us, and that we're not intentionally punishing anyone for enjoying their recreational choice and when they want to do it. I also wanted to chime in. I appreciate bringing up the dynamic pricing. I don't think I'm sold on it. I'd be interested in a discussion, but because we are running a public golf course, I think it also ties in of, I think, having displayed known prices is also valuable, and while we could make more money, I think there's a line between offering a good, and I understand hotels and flights do that. I will say, at least, while I know it's happening, I do find that infuriating, and I feel like I'm being nickeled and dimed. And I think it's a different, I think it goes even further when it's a private company nickel and diming me versus my own local government. I think brings a different gut feeling to that. I'm absolutely open to a discussion, but I think I wanted to share that since we brought it up, that I think more discussion could be warranted.
Josh, before you go into your other points,
yes,
we all pay in some way or another. So one way that you pay is you don't get to golf. Another way you pay is you're sitting at your computer, or however you're trying to get your tea time lined up. So someone else is retired and they have more time to get on the computer quicker than you, or you pay with money. And the thing with dynamics pricing is possibly you might decide, I'd prefer to play at 8, but that's slightly more expensive than 9, so I'll save a couple dollars. So you could unnickel and dime yourself possibly by playing at maybe not your exact preferred time. But I'm sure I want to know more about it. I'm not so sure if I like it yet. So I'll hold off for now because we're not going to do that this year.
Sure. Yeah. I appreciate that. Well, I think it is possible with Ed's proposal or alternative 2, and that any potential scare we could give to some golfers could potentially be offset by what I think is great with the member program and also the top tracer tech. I also think it's wise at this point to either hold steady or keep increases to a minimum. I will say I know very little about golf, and I view you are the golf professional, so I would favor something that would be a little more restrictive this time, while knowing that in the future there will be opportunities if supply and demand continues to be what it was during COVID or anything like that. We can always increase rates, but I would want to maintain the philosophy that we are a public golf course, and I want people to be able to golf, even though I'm not a golfer, because I want to be able to do the activities that I love in my community as well. So that being said, I would be open to keeping current rates. I'd also be open to alternative one. I do appreciate you looking at balancing and looking that way, but I think I would prefer keeping current rates or alternative one.
Josh, so
yes.
Hearing that and trying to understand, so you said you're open to alternative one, and the difference between Ed's suggestion and yours then would only be the weekday 18-hole?
And the weekend and holidays is a distinction.
I will make a motion. There's a motion on the floor, and there wasn't a second, but I will make a motion.
Well, I just want to know, does anybody want to second my motion?
I might want to after hearing this one, I'm not sure.
I would move approval of alternate one, and then the implementation of the, I'll call it club group rate, the group plan. I think that's great.
I would second that.
Sorry, just a point of clarity from staff. We have alternative one, and then we have alternative one. So for the pricing, there's alternative one, and then there's, I guess I would say option one for voting. Does that distinction matter when we're voting right now?
Alternative, the first and the alternative one.
Sorry, as a point, like Elaine didn't read option one fully through, but she has indicated. I just want to make sure.
All of option one, including the top tracer technology for the driving range, the rate schedule as proposed, and including the I call it club.
Players club, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Can we do?
No, you're fine.
Right. Oh,
no,
sorry.
you're fine.
Before we call
We
the
got a
question,
second?
I'd like to comment on that. I did hear that there was a motion and a second. I think that's a decent compromise between the position that Ed brought up and keeping the rates the same. I trust in the report much of your professional judgment. Some of it could have been subjective, like the ratings of courses, but that'd be hard to do. And I know you visited them and you have a background in that. The other part to that is I appreciate, Ed, that you're looking out for the best interest of the district, as all of us are, and trying to meet our budget needs and goals. So I appreciate your effort into finding the different ways of doing that. And I don't think without you there would have been much of a push to, whether it might not be the alternative you chose, there probably would have been a push to do as much of any alternative or any increases in the fees. So I appreciate your energy and effort into looking out for that in the last few years and tonight too.
I would echo that, thanks.
And I'm going to respond. I think that my concern is, while I appreciate a lot that our golf course manager does and the time and effort put into this report, I do feel we take a week. I do feel that the golf course manager takes a week into that approach. And had we taken that approach for the past 5 years, we would have missed out on a lot of revenue. And the issue of tee times and pace of play would be even worse than it is now. But even beyond that, even beyond that, the message this sends when we aren't taking advantage of a supply and demand situation, when people are having issues about the fairness of getting tea times, I think is a snub at our residents, because we aren't doing that the right way, yet we're taxing them, and yet there's been pushes to increase our after-school club rates higher than we have, and our youth sports fees higher than we have. And so I believe there's a lot of inconsistency there, and a lot of unfairness there. And for that reason, I will vote no.
Chair, can I comment on that?
Yes.
Just a quick response. Weak and timid would have been leaving tea times at a 10-minute interval last fall when I had the option to do that, and the board wouldn't have known the difference. Aggressive looking for revenue is me pushing tea times out faster and pushing revenue. So I disagree with your characterization that staff is, especially me, because you're talking about me, weak and timid. I actually went out and pushed revenue on my own with no incentive other than making myself more complaints. I'm out there trying to make money out of the golf course and doing it, and without doing it in a controversial manner, because you guys haven't heard any complaints from anybody. Nobody from the golf community has been here since October when I compressed the tea times, and that's resulted in maybe $300,000 in more revenue since then. So I disagree with your characterization.
Again, I said I think there's a lot of things that you do well, and I appreciate that. I don't think we take the right approach on things.
We have had a motion and a second. Can we do roll call, please?
Director Avila?
No.
Director Denners?
Yes.
Director O'Brien?
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes.
And Chair Gray?
Aye.
That motion carries with a 4-to-1 vote, with Director Avila voting no.
Thank you. That will take us to item 9E, approval of pay and benefit changes for...
Actually, I need that.
Yes. Belay that. We will take a 5-minute recess and return at 10:10. Calling the meeting back in order at 10:09 p.m.
Chair, I might recommend that we go into closed session briefly before the next two items, because the closed session items could impact the review of the next two items, the contracts for the employees. So I suggest at this point we revise the agenda a little bit. We go into closed session, and we come back into open session to continue the agenda.
I would concur unless there's any dissent from the board on that decision. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, let me.
And we'll take public comment as well after Brian reads the titles.
Yeah.
We have 4 agenda items on closed session. They're all closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator. In all of the matters, the agency negotiator is the district manager and director of administration, and the only difference is the employee organization being talked about. In matter A, it's the Rancho Senior Recreation and Park District Middle Management Association. In item B, it is the district manager and director of administration. Oh wait, sorry, I'm wrong. It's getting late, guys. The employee organization in item B is with the Rancho Senior Employees Association. In item C, the employee organization is the Maintenance and Grounds Association. And in item D, it is the unrepresented employees.
Thank you. Public comment, Chair?
Any public comment on this item? I have not seen anyone in the building, and I have not seen anyone on Zoom.
If I could ask the comment operator and the videographer to mute everything so we can have a brief close.
Okay, thank you. Out of closed session, item 13, there's no reportable action, which will then take us to item 9E, approval of pay and benefit changes for Rancho Senior Recreation and Park District Middle Management Association, RSRPD Employee Association, and unrepresented district employees.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide the report.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. As you're aware, the district has been engaged in labor negotiations with the Middle Management Association, Rancho Senior Employee Association, and the unrepresented employees. During that period, staff discussed these matters in closed session, and the groups have agreed upon a 5% cost of living increase effective June 23rd, 2023, a $75 a month increase in flexible benefit, and 100% discount on Rancho Senior's after-school club and summer camp tuition for employees' children if they reside with the employee. The two groups have signed the letters of agreement, which are attached to the staff report, and at this time we're asking authorization for the district manager to also sign those agreements and for the implementation of those benefits.
Any board questions? I see no public. Assuming there will be no public comment on this item. Any board comment?
Motion to approve.
Second. Director O'Brien has the second. Roll call, please.
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director O'Brien?
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes.
And Chair Grant?
Aye.
That motion carries with unanimous vote.
Chair, just if I could, on behalf of the employees, which doesn't include me because I'm not a part of this, but I just wanted to thank the board for the very fair and great offer for our employees and recognizing the job they do for us in the community. So I personally appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you to our employees. You all do an excellent job.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's getting late. That takes us to item 9F, approval and adoption of full-time employee classification schedules by Rancho Senior Recreation and Park District Board of Directors.
Ms. Pennington will provide the report.
Yes, based on the approval of that cost of living increase in the last staff report, the protocol is to produce a updated classification schedule that reflects the 5%. And then we also took the opportunity to update that chart with a new title, changing one position from a recreation coordinator to the park and museum coordinator is the requested title change. And then based on a preliminary budget approval of adding the limited term position of marketing and community outreach to an ongoing permanent position that has now been added to the classification chart as well. And that concludes my report.
Any board questions? I'm not hearing any. There is no public to speak of at the moment. Any board comments?
I will move approval of staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
I will just throw out there, I'm glad to see the title change as well as the permanency of Mr. Remo's position. He's done an excellent job, and I've seen the impacts all over the community while he's been doing it, so thank you.
Yes.
Pardon the interruption. Can we get roll call, please?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director O'Brien?
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes.
And Chair Grant?
Aye.
Motion carries with unanimous vote.
That takes us to item 9G, audit results and basic financial statements for RSRPD for fiscal year end June 30th, 22.
Ms. Pennington will provide the report.
Thank you. The accounting firm Moss, Leddy & Hartsign has performed the annual audit for fiscal year 21-22. They provided a financial statement which is attached to the staff report. I would normally kind of go through the highlights. Happy to do that, but at 10:30, I don't know if anyone wants to listen to those highlights at this point. I do want to point out that the auditors, they acknowledge it's difficult to have optimal internal controls and segregation of duties with a small accounting department. However, they did identify a finding and made recommendations in the management report and auditor's communication letter. As a result of that, several new procedures have been implemented to include a new check log, as well as tasks diversified throughout the department to include mailing of checks by a different employee, reviewing positive pay by a third employee, and then the maintaining of the vendor log is a separate task from the person who actually processes payments for invoices. So just wanted to be transparent and identify that finding, and happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Any board questions? Hearing none, there's no public to speak of at the moment, so no public comment. Any board comments? Hearing none. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
There's no motion.
There's no.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's too late. Thank you. That will take us to item 9H, approval of resolution number 2060, establishing the 23-24 appropriations limitation in accordance with Article 13B of the Constitution of the State of California.
Ms. Pennington will provide the report.
On May 10, 2023, the board reviewed staff's calculation of the appropriation limitation and its application to anticipated receipts and capital expenditures for fiscal year 23-24. The figures used were from the first draft of the preliminary budget for the year and the price and population data compiled by the California Department of Finance. The board also approved the publishing of a legal notice to inform the public of its opportunity to review this calculation. The legal notice was published in Ventura County Star more than a 15-day period prior to this request for approval of the resolution. And based on these steps, the board may now consider adoption of the appropriations limitation for fiscal year 23-24 in the amount of $24,180,477. That concludes my report.
Is this a requirement by the Department of Finance for the state of California?
Yes.
Any board questions? There is no public to speak of, no public comment. Is there any board comments? This is an approval, so we do need a motion.
Yes, motion to adopt the resolution.
I will make that motion.
I will second. Can we do a roll call, please?
Director Abel.
Aye.
Director Tennant.
Yes.
Director O'Brien.
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman.
Yes.
And Chair Grant.
Aye.
That motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to item 9I, CSDA, call for a vote from member agencies to fill Coastal Network Seat C on the Board of Directors for the 24-26 term.
Thank you, Chair. We are afforded the opportunity to vote for a representative on the CSDA Board of Directors, which is Coastal Network C. There are 3 candidates before you that are included in your staff report. Should the board choose to cast a vote, now would be the time to select who we would want to vote for of those 3 candidates. That concludes staff's report.
Any board questions?
No question.
There is no public comment. Board comments?
Yes.
Vice Chair
I will
Freeman.
just say that Elaine Beckner, who is president of CSDA from our fellow Park District, Pleasant Valley, recommends that we vote for Vince Ferrante. He's been a good board member for a long time, and then looking at the other members, other applicants, they are newbies, most of them. If you see, they haven't done that much for the organization. So anyway, that's from Elaine Magner.
Any other board comments?
Right. I'm going to abstain because I don't know these people, and I can't go from a recommendation based on someone else's recommendation. So I can't in good faith or good conscience vote for any of them.
Okay. Any other board comment? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move. We nominate Vince, support Vince.
I'll second that.
Can we do a roll call, please?
Director Avila.
Abstain.
Director Dennert.
Yes.
Director O'Brien.
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman.
Yes.
And Chair Gray.
Aye.
That motion carries with Director Avila abstaining.
That takes us to item 10, written communications of note. Does staff have any?
Chair, I'm actually going to excuse myself. It's been at least an hour that I've not been feeling well, but I wanted to get through the board business. So
Okay.
I wish everybody a good night.
Good. Okay. Feel better?
Staff has no written communications of note.
Okay. Just a point of order, do we need to do anything of significance as Director Avila leaves?
No, we still have a quorum, so we're fine.
Okay.
And he's noted his departure on the record, so I don't.
Makes the meeting go long.
Okay, let's continue then. Sorry, no written communications of note from staff? Any board written communications?
I
Okay.
received the same email I assume everybody else did about Tai Chi. Dan, has that been addressed?
Yeah, we had some communication with the participant. All that being said, I think it was just more of an emotional reaction to someone not being able to get into the classroom when they wanted to. The policies never changed, the procedures never changed, so some of the accusations being were not quite accurate, but we did resolve it with both the participant and the instructor, so I think we're okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That will take us to item 11, reports by board members. Director Denver, would you like to lead us on?
Hi, I went to the St. Valley City Council meeting to speak on behalf of BMX. We had a soccer foundation meeting. They shared ideas about lights in parking lots, and they had done that by one of them by email before. And then I rode my bike to every park in St. Valley. I could have mapped it better, but it was 57.5 miles. It is an e-bike. It makes it much easier. Dan and I had a meeting before this meeting, and Dan, I want to tell you I appreciate that because we can all look at the reports that we're given, but it gives us the opportunity to ask questions and better understand issues, so thank you. And then happy Juneteenth to everybody.
Brian, if I could, I could meet with you on the parking and parking lots discussion, I would appreciate it.
About 30 seconds.
Thank you. Director O'Brien, would you like to go next?
I had no meetings this period, which is kind of unusual. And I just want to support the idea of bringing back the Vietnam War. Vietnam War. What time is it? Go kill my.
Please put that in the minutes.
No. This is what happens when I'm late. I want to support the idea of bringing back. I'm not going to laugh about the Vietnam War. That's all this time.
No, I'm laughing.
I want to totally support bringing back the wall, the Vietnam Veterans Wall. I think it's can't do that often enough, and that's it.
Vice Chair Freeman.
Yes, I have a couple things. I have a CSDA legislative meeting, and I know that I wanted to bring this up, the importance of us being there and have an example of why. There's a bill, AB 1572, that the legislative staff asked for help from Park District. And the reason is because the bill could be interpreted to mean that fenced recreation area would not be functional. In other words, we couldn't water it. So you have a fenced area like girls softball, which is functional, but because it's fenced and only open for specific times, it could not be watered under the functional definition.
Or a dog park.
Or a dog park, or Challenger Field, or, I mean, a whole lot of other things. So, working with Dan and the legislative analyst, the legislator has corrected the bill so that we would not be placed in that position of being non-functional grass and fenced areas. So the time and the effort, I just want to point out, it's really worth it to have somebody participating in the legislative committee. I mean, a lot of it is not pertinent to us, but then every once in a while something comes along like this. And it is very important. The other thing I had was Simi Valley Community Council has a president's breakfast every year. The council meets once a month. It's an organization of organizations. There are 30 groups. You share information about what all of them are doing. It's put on their website for the community council. The volunteers, each organization awards is a recognized volunteer of the year. This year, we had a really special volunteer, Joel Mueller. He's been volunteering with the district for 20 years. He's sight impaired. And his mom brought him, and Mrs. Mueller actually is a foster mom, and I mean, the whole story is really nice. She's had 32 foster babies. And Joel was one of them, and he was sight impaired when she had him, when she was taking care of him, and they chose to adopt him, giving him this opportunity in this life. It was really very special. That's a very special family, and it just was a great thing. There were 18 organizations and 18 volunteers, and it was a very positive energy, and it was great. If you ever get a chance to meet Joel.
I have met him a couple times.
Yeah. He's known as Mr. Shredder.
Yeah. Yes. And he's great for shredding because he can't see well, so you don't have to worry about confidentiality.
He does have some sight, but it's really, really limited. He has he needs assistance. So it was good.
Thank you. I just did want to ask, hearing through social groups that the junkyard did have a fire, have we checked in for the management of the Birdie Bar? Any concerns with
We had a regular meeting with the Birdie Bar this week instead of the junkyard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You haven't heard about any impacts to our operation at Birdie Bar. They're probably happy to have it, and they'll have an alternate location to serve their customers.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something that could have happened. Other than that, I will just say Happy Father's Day to those fathers, and Happy Juneteenth. And that will conclude my report for this evening. That takes us to item 12, report by district manager.
Yeah, real quickly, Director Miller and I did read what the equestrian center representatives, and we're working on the operating plan and a proposal from them. We don't have it yet, but we'll bring that back to the board when we get it. The Oak Park Lagoon ribbon cutting is tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I know several of you are going. Teresa has hired a new accounting specialist, so she is now, her accounting staff is now whole again. So she did a lot of work on that recruitment, so thank you. Our May financials look good, went through those with the staff today, where the budget and budget actuals are looking good. We did our insurance carriers, or our representative was here to inspect various facilities, which they do every 12 to 18 months, and so we went through that with them. Thanks to the staff for that. And a bit of bad news, we had a limited earthquake insurance policy. It wasn't very robust, but our insurance carrier has dropped coverage for it due to various issues going on with California insurance market. So that policy is scheduled to expire on June 30th. So Teresa and I will be working to see if there's an alternative. I guess as any substantive alternative is probably going to be fairly cost prohibitive for that. So we will be evaluating that, but I did want to let the board know that as of June 30th, we will not have an earthquake policy anymore. And again, I want to emphasize the policy that we did have was very limited in nature in terms of what coverages it provided. So
Doesn't the state of California have some kind of?
That's what we've got to look into. Teresa and I got to research that and take a look at it. So.
Yeah, you have the authority to like sign a short-term or a very limited, as you described it, insurance policy. I'm kind of nervous, like there's an earthquake on July 1st.
Yeah, I think I have the authority to do that myself if we're able to find something. So, but I'll keep you posted on We do have upcoming board meetings. We have an Oak Park committee meeting, not a board meeting, a committee meeting on July 13th. You do not have a big meeting the first week of July. Your next meeting on July 19th, and it's going to include a discussion about board meeting structure and length of the meetings potentially. We have our budget public hearing. Equestrian Center may be back then, maybe not. We have a policy update on flex and childcare, and we want to get your authorization to prepay our CalPERS payment because we get a discount if we do that. That's what's scheduled for your next meeting on the 19th, and that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. We have already done item 13 with closed session, which takes us to 14 with adjournment. We are adjourning at 10:45 p.m. Have a good evening, everyone.